In world news today, officials decree that rapper Brad Jordan and his Scarface must be stopped after being monitored by Secret Service agents for 2 years. Evidence leads tobacco and firearms officials to believe that his lyrics, dope lyrics, promote drug usage and distribution. The way women influence gamble, promote anti-smoking, and more importantly, it's influencing minors and destroying our communities. Officials say he's a lot of underground rap and his music must be stopped.
That is all of the fucking mission. Now I'm going to you from the shot of trying to come up with a good decision. They try to press to society. And now they're calling up the government to try to make somebody what? For the bullshit they done to me. Gangsta them spots won't let you rock. Never gave up in the league. So gangsta rap ain't done shit for them. I've even seen white folks from River Oaks don't get the get. So why you trying to get some custom? Americans always been known for letting us niggas what they fuckers. And we were always considered deep. Now they're trying to bust the only communicating with our people. Let's keep the days on a different day. Now dealing promise pistol every time niggas someone tangle. So why you criticize me for the shit that you see on your TV? That breaks what you teaching. That bring your ass to where they got me. So you can feel the hand of the dead body.
Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love. Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love.
So now they try and separate and sending black folks in white coats to infiltrate our congregation, tapping into all the conversation, saying the message that they get, report more criminalization. So players gotta sip them like while there's been a work, they can get kissed and killed instead. David Duke's got a shotgun. So why you get upset? Cause I got a tisket, a casket, a nigga got his ass kicked, shot in the face by a got closed casket. And open and shut situation. God gets got, they wanna blame it on my occupation. If you don't take me, then nigga, you can shoot me on the shit that I be saying. And what did the way to do me? Don't blame me, blame your man, God. So you can feel the hand of the dead body.
Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love. Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love.
Prepare to free your mind until I free my mind and stop talking with these boys up top. I feel my back once. The rain go boom, it hits out the black. White boys got a magazine that don't know how to act. I'm attacking in your vomit. Trying to talk you behind me. Do it gotta cover. I'm this Nick. I'm the illest. When they kill this house, nigga, got Cornelius. Can you feel this? You put on the same shit. Fucking on the devil, get scared of revolution. Needs the execution. Houston is the place. I caught a case. The motherfuckers tried to put a scar on my face. But I bust 2 times with a guts. Look up at the cabin bus. Got a pair of nuts. I saw this gangster shit in 86. Now you're dissing me for publicity. Isn't he a home to the 3rd degree? For me, I'm a G that like a scrap of life. Down with rap a lot, and I take stock, won't stop. So fuck Bill and Hillary. Ice Cube, it ain't no killing me. Ice Cube, Scarface, drop it on sell ass niggas.
Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love. Nigga don't believe that song, that niggas wrong. Gangsta don't get that love.
Oh man. Oh man, it's on tonight, baby. It's on tonight. All right, look. Peace to everybody out there, man. I got my brother here, Omowale, Afrika. Tonight, we're going to do a presentation on the gender wars, black, female, and male gender wars, the history of the gender wars. We're going to bring receipts. We're going to explain how, as a people, we got in this condition today. There's a lot of talk where we're blaming the black woman for the conditions of the community. A lot of these brothers are talking, going out to other places in the world and dating out. The black woman is considered unruly, angry all the time. She can't. She's not able to maintain a relationship. Um, the black man is docile. He's a beta male. So my brother Omowale the elder, he's going to come today, and he's going to drop this science today as to how we got here. He's going to really break down the relationship between the black man and the black woman today, and the pitfalls that and the traps that were set in front of us. He's going to dispel a lot of myths. He's going to break down the ignorance. So listen, no more shenanigans, man. I bring this brother, you know, let him do his thing. Unmute yourself, Omowale, man, and go to work.
All right, I think I'm unmuted, Brother George. Definitely appreciate the intro. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so we can get right into it. Am I sharing my entire screen? Share the entire screen. All right. So yeah, we're gonna get right into it with the proceedings, you know, this evening. And at the end of the day, man, I think the key word that he hit there was the traps. You know what I mean? We really need to expose the traps that have been laid for us, you know, in this country. The trap that is the black gender war that continues to be waged, especially on this online environment. So what we want to do tonight is really dispel a lot of the myths behind it. We want to give you some historical evidence that shows you how it got started. And ultimately, we want to break down for you what the ultimate goal is of this black gender war in America, right? So the title of tonight's presentation is Black Fertility, Underemployment, Racial Extermination in America, right? So it's the untold truth behind the black gender war. Just a heads up, if you find, the information presented tonight to be informative, I do write, so you can check out, I've written about this before on Medium. These are just two pieces that I've written in the past. You can go to my Medium account at Omowale Afrika. I also talk about this topic a lot on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at Omowale Afrika. But you'll see me a lot on the Brother George's channel. So make sure that you do follow, like, and subscribe to Brother George. Right, so the outline for tonight's presentation, I'm basically going to give you a quick intro, and then right off the bat, I'm going to go into the origins of the black gender crisis in America. I'm going to talk about the white America's Negro problem, give you a little bit of the history about black marriage in the 19th century, bring it up to the 20th century with the American dilemma and America's goal of exterminating black people. And then I'll end by just posing the question of where do we go in the 21st century in terms of survival as a people. All right, so I'm going to start with an intro from our Queen Mother, Frances Cress Welsing, right? So she says, it would seem that there is a crisis of immense and serious proportions in the black male and black female relationship in the final decade of the 20th century. During the past decade, this apparent problem has been seminared, dialogued, discussed, debated, probed, and shouted about from every conceivable angle. Innumerable remedies have been proposed. No matter what angle this issue is approached from, the problems don't disappear. Instead, they seem to multiply, and the alienation between the black male and the black female just increases, right? So she says, our failure to analyze the white supremacy dynamic deeply is a tragedy, because this dynamic is the fundamental cause of the failed relationships between black males and black females, right? So I want us to let that sit in for a little bit, because I'm throughout the night, I'm just going to be unpacking white supremacy's hidden hand and the current dynamic between black men and black women in America, right? So if we want to get to the origins of the gender crisis in the black and black America, I think sometimes it's best to listen to our sisters, right? So I have a quote here from my sister, Assata Shakur, and then I have a quote from Michelle Wallace. Now, I don't necessarily support black feminism, but I think it's very important for us to always understand and examine both sides of the argument, right? So Michelle or Assata Shakur says,
The more I watch how boys and girls behave, the more I read and the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that this behavior could be traced directly back to the plantation, right? And Michelle Wallace basically echoes the same sentiment. She says that there was a misunderstanding between the black man and the black woman, a misunderstanding as old as slavery, right? So if we want to understand that this current conflict that we have going on between us as black men and black women, we need to really be able to root it or ground it in history and understand the history of our situation or our sojourn here in America and how we got exactly where we are today, right? So I'm going to go right in. White America's Negro problem, right? So the big problem that white America has always had has been us as black people, as echoed by Benjamin Franklin. He asked the question back in the 18th century, why increase the sons of Africa by planting them here in America, right? So white people, since they left Europe, have been keenly aware of their status as a minority on this planet. They've been keenly aware of their low numbers and the large numbers of black people or people of color all around this planet. And one of the things that they realized very early on during their period of enlightenment was populations, if left unchecked, will grow. Right? That's one of the key premises that I want us to keep in our mind throughout this presentation. A population that is left unchecked, if you don't do anything to prevent that population from growing, it will grow. So this dude, Thomas Malthus, wrote an essay back in 1793. It was called An Essay on the Principles of Population. And here's what was his argument. He said that there are two types of checks to hold a population in check. You have positive checks, which raise the death rate, and preventative ones, which lower the birth rate. The positive checks include hunger, disease, and war. The preventative checks include birth control, postponement of marriage, and celibacy, right? So this guy, Benjamin Franklin, was also a proponent of population control. And in 1751, he released an essay called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind and the Peopling of Countries. And his key observation from this entire essay was that people increase in proportion to the number of marriages. And marriages are greater based upon the ease and convenience of supporting a family. What he's saying is based upon the economy, based upon how economically secure we are as a people, that has a direct relationship with us marrying and reproducing or increasing the population. So it would make sense to say, or the logical conclusion of the statement would be that if you have increased marriages, you'll have increased population. If you want to decrease the population of a segment of people, then you need to decrease their marriages. And if you want to decrease their marriages, one of the key things that you need to do is tamper with the relationship between black men and black women. So I'm going to keep on moving here. This is just 6 of the points that not Booker T. Washington, my apologies to the chat, that Benjamin Franklin laid out. And the last point 6, is just the one that I want to share with you. Ben Franklin was very, very concerned about the growth of the black population here in America. And not only was he concerned for the fact that he felt that it would damage the numbers of white people, he was concerned for the fact that the more and more black people that we brought here, eventually this could end up being a population or a nation that was predominantly black, and this was not something that he wanted to occur, right? So, Brother George, I hear echo.
Echo?
It just went away. It's still there a little bit. All right, we good. So, point 6 here, Ben Franklin says, the Negroes brought here into the English sugar islands have greatly diminished the whites there. The poor are by this means deprived of employment, while a few families acquire vast estates, which they spend on foreign luxuries and educating their children in the habit of those luxuries, till the same income is needed to support of one that might have maintained 100. The whites who have slaves not laboring are enfeebled and therefore not so generally prolific. The slaves being worked too hard and ill-fed, their constitutions are broken, and the deaths among them are more than the births, so that a continuous supply is needed from Africa. The northern colonies have few slaves, increasing whites. Slaves also purate, which means to make worse the families that use them. The white children become proud, disgusted with labor, and being educated in idleness or laziness are rendered unfit to get a living by industry, right? So white people at this time were incredibly concerned with the numbers of black people. So they wanted to come up with ways to devise a manner in which to get rid of our population. So if you look right here where it says, for example, one of the ways they developed in the early 18th century, or the late 18th century, early 19th century, was this idea of race mixing, right? And I'm going to read this for you. It says, ordinary white Americans thus rejected any form of black-white mixing. By the early 19th century, then, supporters of selective mixed marriages belonged to a small class of men with an intimate knowledge of Enlightenment thinking. For example, the Marquis de Chateau observed of Jeffersonian Virginia that the best expedient to eradicating blackness would be to export a large number of black males and to encourage the marriage of white men with black females. I want you to let that sink in for a little bit. This is as early as the 19th century, the early 19th century. They're trying to figure out, as slavery comes to an end, how do we get rid of all of these black people? Because we want this to be a white nation, right? In the 18th century, you see Ben Franklin is already perplexed. Like, listen, we got too many black people here. This needs to be a white nation. We need to figure out how to get rid of them. So at the beginning of the 19th century, they logically start to say, well, a good way to remove them would be get rid of the males. If you move the males, if you can export a large number of males somewhere else, then you can mate with the females, and eventually you'll produce a white child, right? So if you look at the start of the second paragraph, it says, Thomas Jefferson gave mathematical precision to the idea of reproducing whiteness, right? So if you look at this letter, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but this is a letter that Jefferson wrote to Francis C. Gray, March 4th of 1815. And he's basically saying it's simple math. Once you've gotten rid of the black men, it's easy to get rid of the black race or the black people amongst us if we just continue to reproduce with their women, right? I'll start right here where it says the first crossing, right? He says the first crossing of a pure Negro with a pure white, the unit of blood issue being composed of the half of that each parent, call for an abbreviation, yada, 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 yada. I'm going to keep going all the way down. But at the end, he says, who having less blood than 1/4 of a or pure Negro blood, to wit, only is no longer a mulatto. So that third cross clears the blood, right? So when he's making the argument right here, and as you can see, this is a mathematical equation that Thomas Jefferson put together. I guarantee you they didn't teach you this in college algebra or your your elementary mathematics class, but this is literally a mathematical formula that he devised for reproducing whiteness, right? If you get rid of the men, if you lower the count of the men and you have the black woman at your will, then you can have sex with them. The first generation, you'll get a light child. The second generation, a little lighter. But by that third generation, he's making that the third cross of the blood, the blackness or the Africanness will be removed from the population, right? And you've reproduced a white population. So you've gotten rid of the black population by having sex with their women or by mixed marriage, right? So another scheme that they use, we're all familiar with the colonization scheme. I just brought this up just to show, before I pivot into the next topic, that as late as 1865, Abraham Lincoln had sent Senator Dan Sickles down to South America to scout for lands for the purpose of repatriating black people, right? They wanted this nation to be a white nation. But what messed up their plans a little bit was when the Civil War broke out, you had black people running to the lines of the Union Army prepared to fight for their freedom. And so many black people came to the lines of the Union Army prepared to fight for their freedom that for a while, this country was like, you know what? All right, we're not going to send them away. We're going to give them citizenship, yada, yada, yada. But that's what I'm going to break down right here, where I'm dealing with black marriage in the 19th century, right? Land, liberty, and the pursuit of marriage, right? So during that pre-emancipation period and the Reconstruction period, there was very little difference between the material conditions for black people as it relates to marriage, right? When black people were enslaved, marriage was encouraged by the slave owner. It was encouraged by the slave owner because he felt that A, it would create stability on the plantation, and the children that were reproduced could be sold for a profit. So he encouraged marriage on the plantation, right? After slavery was over, right, the federal government also encouraged marriage, right? So during slavery, right, slaves were given plots of land to grow their own crops, or enslaved Africans or captive Africans. I don't want to call us slaves. I'm going to call us enslaved Africans or captive Africans. But our ancestors were essentially given plots of land by the slave master. And on those plots of land during slavery, they were able to grow their own crops and raise chickens to feed themselves. In some cases, they were even able to sell the surplus for money. After slavery ended, the same thing happened with the federal government. The federal government gave us plots of land, right, so that we could till and work the land for our survival, right? So the only difference that occurred really in marriage conditions, or the material conditions for marriage with pre-emancipation and Reconstruction, was just a change in ownership, right? So during slavery, African people were private property. After slavery, we became state property or wards of the state, right? We came into the Union Army and what they refer to as contraband camps. We didn't even come in as people. We came in as contraband, right? So during slavery, the slave owner would be in control of how the population of black people increases or decreases. After slavery, the state is in control of how the population increases or decreases. During slavery, the slave owner is responsible for whether you're going to destroy the family or you're going to keep the family together. After slavery, the state is responsible, right? For example, I just mentioned how during the 19th century, especially with the booming cotton economy, a lot of African people who were enslaved on the East Coast were sent south to work on the plantations. That destroyed African families. It sent us all over the place. And Reconstruction, during Reconstruction, a lot of black families came back together. But the key promise of the government during the Reconstruction period was A, they promised to protect our liberty. B, they encouraged the marriage of freedmen, and C, they gave us land grants, right? That's where you get the whole like 40 acres and a mule. But as you will see, right after slavery, and before I even get there, I just want to share this quick excerpt from Martin Delaney, which really speaks to the promise, the things that this government had promised us in terms of the protection of our liberty, right? They had established the Freedmen's Bureau, they encouraged a marriage, and they gave us land grants, right? That 40 acres and a mule. But I want to just read this excerpt here from a speech that Martin Delaney gave in 1865 to newly freed Africans who had escaped slavery and fought with the Union Army. So peep what he says, and I want you to pay close attention. He says, "So I will come to the main purpose for which I have come to see you. As before, the whole South depended upon you. Now the whole country will depend upon you. I give you an advice how to get along. Get up a community and get all the lands you can, if you cannot get any singly. Grow as much vegetables, etc., as you want for your families. On the other part of the land, you cultivate rice and cotton. Now, for instance, 1 acre will grow a crop of cotton of $90 now. A land of 10 acres will bring you $900 every year. If you cannot get the land all yourself, the community can, and so you can divide the profit. There is tobacco, for instance. There are whole squares at Dublin and Liverpool named after some place of tobacco notoriety. So you see of what enormous value your labor was to the benefits of your masters. Now you understand that I want you to be the producers of this country. It is the wish of the government for you to be so. We will send friends to you who will further instruct you how to come to this end of our wishes. You see that by so adhering to our views, you will become a wealthy and powerful population. He says, now I look around me and notice a man barefooted, covered with rags and dirt. Now I ask, what is the man doing? For whom is he working? I hear that he works for that and that former for 30 cents a day. I tell you that must not be. That would be cursed slavery over again. I will not have it. The government will not have it, and the government shall hear about it. I will tell the government, I tell you, slavery is over and shall never return again. We have now 200,000 of our men well drilled in arms and used to warfare. And I tell you, it is with you and them that slavery shall never come back again if you are determined and will not return. Right? So he's basically saying that black people, the government just gave you all this land. They gave you the means to work it. You're about to be the producers of the land because you control all the work of the land. All of the economy during slavery was ran by black people at every level because white people had gotten so they had begun to associate working with a lower class or a lower state of life. They associated working with slavery. So black people literally did all the work. So he's saying now in freedom, what I want you to do is do this for yourself, and you're going to be one of the most wealthy and powerful populations in the country. That was the promise, and he's saying here that the government was supposed to back it up. Well, naturally, with that promise, black people begin to do very well. Marriage rates actually during the 19th century for black people actually surpassed slightly, but surpassed the marriage rates for white people, right? So this is a sister who just released a book. I believe she's either professor at Harvard or at Princeton, but she breaks it down here. She says that the gap between the nearly universal marriage rates in which blacks outpace whites and the more disparate rates in the formation of two-parent families in which whites overtook blacks is revealing. It indicates that while African Americans showed strong inclinations to use marriage as a strategy to advance their social and economic survival, they were not always able to translate that into viable households that they could sustain. So what's happening during this point of the 19th century? Well, we all know that after Reconstruction, that the Southern lawmakers essentially recaptured the government and they instituted what's known as Jim Crow. So during the Jim Crow period, the land that was given to us got taken away. The federal troops that were in the South, things like the Freedmen's Bureau went away. You saw the emergence of the KKK, and black families were forced into servitude. Right, black families were forced into sharecropping, which you saw Martin Delaney just talking about. Right, and one of the most important things that happened during this period, and this is where you start to see the government's attitude switch towards black families. Right, so one of the most important things that happened was black widows of Union soldiers. Right, when their husbands died, the government said, if you get remarried or if we find you cohabitating with another man, we're going to take the pension away from you, right? So this is where we see kind of like in the welfare system, they start to incentivize black women to remain single. Although black women did a lot to get around this. A lot of black women found ways to sneak and still have a mate, right? But at the end of the day, the threat was there and the threat was real. But this threat was not a threat that was imposed on white women who were the widows of Union soldiers. The white women could remarry and the government wouldn't come after them. But if a black woman remarried, right, to try to keep the family intact or to have a male in the household, then the government would come after her and take away the pension, right? This is just an excerpt here. This excerpt comes from actually the Moynihan Report. I know that the Moynihan Report is a troubled document, but I wouldn't discount it, and here's Rod. He says, when Jim Crow made its appearance towards the end of the 19th century, it may be speculated that it was the Negro male who was the most humiliated thereby. The male was more likely to use public facilities, which rapidly became segregated once the process began, and just as important, segregation and the submissiveness it exacts, it's surely more destructive to the male than to the female personality. Keeping the Negro in his place can be translated as keeping the Negro male in his place. The female was not a threat to anyone, right? So I'm making this argument, or I'm using this here to basically show us that the focus of Jim Crow, the focus of keeping Black people down was focused on the Black male. If you can isolate the Black male, if you can dominate the Black male, then the entire Black population or the entire Black collective will be maintained at a ground level. And if you want to discount what Moynihan said in his report, although there are elements of his report that are a bit problematic or troublesome, Ida B. Wells said the same thing in the Red Record, right? So you can discount his argument in the Moynihan report for that particular aspect, but Ida B. Wells makes the same exact argument. When it comes to Jim Crow and lynching, she says Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and Will Stewart had committed no crime against white women. This was what opened my eyes to what lynching was really about. She says it was an excuse to get rid of Negroes who were acquiring wealth and property, and thus keep the race terrorized and keep the nigger down, right? She's breaking it down for you that the society, right, private, public, it don't matter, the society as a whole turned its attention to Black men at the end of the 19th century when it was decided that no, we are not going to allow Black people to proliferate amongst us. We're going to make sure that population gets in check. So at the point where the 19th century is coming to an end, Black people are about 20% of the population, right? Within 20 years, Black people are reduced to 10% of the population. Now, some of that reduction has to do with the fact that a significant amount of European immigrants came here, but parts of that reduction is also due to this putting the Black population in check by focusing on the male. All right, so I'm gonna just skip that. So here in the 1940s, a report is released. This report so happened to be funded by the, I believe it was the Ford Foundation. And we know the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, these people are major supporters of the eugenics movement. But the report was called The American Dilemma, right? And Gunnar Myrdal, he basically presents this argument to the American population. He says, America is free to choose whether the Negro shall remain her liability or become her opportunity, right? Because at this point in the nation's history, America had gotten to a point where, okay, slavery is over, Reconstruction ended, and now we are here in Jim Crow. Now, I hate to do as much reading, but these are just things that I really need for us to understand so that we can understand the historical seriousness of what this nation is going through in order to maintain and get rid of this population of Black people and how the Black gender war plays into that, right? So this comes from an excerpt from the American Dilemma, which was released in 1944. It says, in our further discussion of the means in Negro population policy, we might start out from the desire of the politically dominant white population to get rid of the Negroes. This is a goal difficult to reach by approved means, and the desire has never been translated into action directly and probably never will be. All the most obvious means go strongly against the American creed. So when he's saying like the most obvious means, he's basically talking about, you know, the way that they tried to get rid of the Jews in Nazi Germany, or the way they're getting rid of Black people today in Brazil. Right now in Brazil, there's just an open genocide. They're gunning down Black people. Last year in Brazil, there were 62,000 deaths, right? A large percentage of that deaths were Black. You know, so in Brazil right now, they're just openly executing, getting rid of Black people. So he's saying that in America, you know, it says, all the most obvious means go strongly against the American creed. The Negroes cannot be killed off. Compulsory deportation would infringe upon personal liberty in such a radical fashion that it's excluded. Voluntary exportation of Negroes cannot be carried on extensively because of unwillingness on the part of the recipient nation, as well as on the part of the American Negroes themselves, who usually do not want to leave the country but prefer to stay and fight it out here. Neither is it possible to effectuate the goal by keeping up the Negro death rate. A high death rate is an unhumanitarian and undemocratic way to restrict the Negro population, and in addition, expensive to society and dangerous to the white population. He says the only possible way of decreasing the Negro population is by means of controlling fertility. But as we shall find, even birth control for Negroes as well as for whites will in practice have to be considered primarily as a means to other ends than of decreasing the Negro population. So what he's saying here is that, okay, we got to get rid of black people. We can't get rid of them by gunning them down in the streets. We can't just put them all in gas chambers and get rid of them that way. The only way for us to effectively get rid of black people is by means of controlling the black woman's fertility, right? We see here, this is in 1934, Margaret Sanger writing in the Crisis magazine, The Case for Birth Control. I'm not going to read the entire essay, but I want you to look at the part that's highlighted. One thing she says is the essential facts of birth control are, first, that it is prevention of conception, not interruption of pregnancy after conception has taken place. Well, the organization that Margaret Sanger started is actually responsible for the most abortions in the black community to date, right? So if she said that they were all about prevention and not interruption, we know that that is a lie. Ultimately, they trying to get rid of black babies by any means necessary, right? But I want you to look at how she ends the essay. And this is very important because she's appealing to black women and to black women specifically. She says, in ignorance, right, where I have the mouse here, she says, in ignorance, she brings forth her children and is enslaved as the black race never was enslaved. Where is another Abraham Lincoln to free her? Right? So she's making this appeal to black women to accept birth control so that they can decrease the population. And she's equating having bearing children. She's literally equating it with slavery. She's saying, where is the black woman's Abraham Lincoln? Who's going to free the black woman from all these black ass children? Right? This is literally the argument that she's making right here. Right? So when it comes to birth control, you have to understand that the original plan B, society really only has two levers that they can pull. And those levers focus heavily on the black man. Now, if you go back to the essay that I read at the beginning, where it said, hey, if we want to get rid of these black people, we need to send away the black men and we need to reproduce with the black woman, because by the time 3 generations goes by, that black child will be a white child. So, okay, we can't send the black man away voluntarily, right? They said compulsory deportation won't work. So how do we get away the black man? Well, there's two ways. There's physical access and then there's quality, right? So physical access, mass incarceration, killing black men off. And then quality, permanent unemployment, homosexuality, black men are underdeveloped, right? I'm going to focus on the part about unemployment because there's so much history, there's so much documentation around how unemployment is seen as an effective means to decrease a population and why black men are focused as the target for unemployment, right? So this is just an excerpt from the Journal of Population Economics, right? And it just talks about the link between male unemployment and fertility. But mind you, if you look back to the beginning of this presentation, I showed you one of Benjamin Franklin's key findings in 1751 was if you want to decrease the population, you have to control employment, right? He's basically saying if people have a way to support themselves or to secure themselves economically, then they are going to reproduce. If you take away their economics, slowly but surely, they will stop reproducing. right? And this was an article that was released in 2001 in the Journal of Population Economics. And it says basically, in short, persistent and high unemployment rates are as central to explaining recent changes in fertility behaviors as they were in the interwar period in the 1930s depression. This pro-cyclical behavior of fertility is in line with Easterlin's theoretical expectation, since parents attempting to replicate the standard of living of their own childhood reduce the family size in bad times, right? So when Black people are going through depression, when we are struggling to find work, we can't. It's not that we can't find work because we're being lazy. We can't find work because the society is desirous to get rid of us. And in trying to get rid of us, one of the levers that they have to pull is unemployment, which is why you keep Black men underdeveloped and you keep them underemployed, right? So Marcus Garvey actually gave us a forewarning, and I just want to show that far before the Moynihan Report comes in 1965, we were getting warned in the 19-teens by Booker T. Washington, in the 1920s by Marcus Garvey, in the 1930s by Carter G. Woodson and Du Bois. Like over and over, we're getting all these warnings. But listen to what Marcus Garvey said. He said, "What is the white man's solution for the Negro problem in America?" And I just want you to pay attention to the highlight. He says, now that America is undeveloped and we have 34 million in population, a number not large enough to develop the country as we want it, we will use the 4 million Blacks until we have built up the country sufficiently. And when we no longer need their labor, we will throw them off and let them starve economically and die of themselves or emigrate elsewhere. We care not where. Then no one can accuse us of being inhuman to the Negro, as we shall not have massacred him, right? So he's saying that they understand that they can't outrightly just massacre the Black population, but economics and unemployment will do the trick, right? This is Carter G. Woodson telling us the same exact shit in 1933. This is 10 years after Marcus Garvey tells us. Now listen to Woodson. This is from the Miseducation of the Negro. He says, in the present crisis, however, and by the crisis, he's talking about the Great Depression, right? This is us coming off the hills of the Great Depression. He says, in the present crisis, however, the highly educated Negroes find very little to exploit. And in their untoward condition, they have no program of finding a way out. They see numerous instances of Negroes losing their jobs in white establishments. In fact, these things occur daily. Janitors who have been giving satisfaction are abruptly told that they will no longer be needed. Negro waiters in hotels are being informed that their places will go to white workers. Negro truck drivers are ordered to step down and let needy of the other race go up. We hear so much of that, we wonder what the outcome will be. In this readjustment, and I want us to pay attention here, because we're talking about automation. We've been talking about it in the 60s, talking about it in the 90s, and we're still talking about it in the 2000s. But Carter G. Woodson is telling us this in 1933. He says, in this readjustment, of course, when there are fewer opportunities left for those who cannot or do not have the opportunity to operate machines, the Negroes will naturally be turned out of their positions by their employers who think first of their own race, right? White supremacy is always race first. It says, in the ultimate passing of the Depression, however, Negroes will not be much better off when some of the whites now displacing them will rise to higher levels. In the economic order of tomorrow, there will be little use for the factotum or scullion. Man will not need such personal attention when he can buy a machine to serve him more efficiently. Listen to what he's saying. He's saying the menial Negroes, the aggregate of parasites whom the highly educated Negro has exploited, will not be needed on tomorrow. What then will become of our highly educated Negroes who have no initiative? He says, we have appealed to the talented 10th for a remedy, but they have nothing to offer. Their minds have never functioned in this all-important sphere. The educated Negro shows no evidence of vision. He should see a new picture. The Negroes are facing the alternative of rising in the sphere of production to supply their proportion of the manufacturing and merchants, or go down to the graves as paupers. The Negro must now do for himself or die out as the world undergoes readjustment. Right? So this is Carter G. Woodson telling us the same thing that Garvey told us in 1923. Carter G. Woodson is telling us in 1933. If we do not do for self, we are going to die out. We are facing extermination as a race. He's breaking it down.
Hey, real quick,
Yes, sir.
real fast. That part where you said the talent and tenth, is that Carter G. Wilson? Carter G. Woodson basically speaking on the educated Negro, like that he doesn't care back then?
Yeah.
Wow. Can you read that? Can you just read that part one more time for the audience?
So he says, we have appealed to the talented 10 for a remedy, but they have nothing to offer. Their minds have never functioned in this all-important sphere. The educated Negro shows no evidence of vision. He should see a new picture. The Negroes are facing the alternative of rising in the sphere of production to supply their proportion of the manufacturers and merchants, or of going down to the graves of paupers. The Negro must now do for himself or die out as the world undergoes readjustment.
Just real quick, and I'm gonna mute my mic again.
Go ahead.
Basically, what Carter G. Wilson is saying, what we're saying today, our educated Negro sold us out and was looking down on us even back then. So this is not. So what we see today is nothing new.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll mute my mic.
No, you're good, brother. And whenever you got a question, just definitely jump in.
All right. All right.
All right. So this is a essay that was written in 1964. It's called "Who Needs the Negro?" And the subtitle of the essay was "From the Economics of Exploitation to the Economics of Uselessness." And I'm just going to read this excerpt that's here on the side. It says, with the onset of automation, the Negro is moving out of his historical state of oppression into uselessness. Increasingly, he is not so much economically exploited as he is irrelevant. The tremendous historical change for the Negro is taking place in these terms. He is not needed. He is not so much oppressed as unwanted, not so much abused as ignored. If he disappeared tomorrow, he would hardly be missed. As automation proceeds, it is easier and easier to disregard him. Basically, 20 million Negroes are unwanted. Our values inhibit genocide, so we discard them by establishing new forms of Indian reservations called Negro ghettos. I want you to pay attention to what they're saying here. Literally, he's saying the same thing that Carter G. Woodson said 30 years ago, right? Because this was written in 1964. And in 1944, when Gunnar Myrdal released his paper, he said we need to get rid of the Negro population, but the American creed or American values won't allow us to do it by genocide. So we got to find another way to do it. We got to do a smooth genocide. We got to have a finesse to our genocide. So the best way for us to do it, like I broke it down for you, the best way for us to do it is to focus on the black man. If you keep the black man permanently unemployed, read Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's work. If you manipulate the black man's psychology, his personality, so that he adopts homosexual behaviors, if you underdevelop the black man, you keep him in jail, you kill him, these are all things that A, won't make him a suitable mate, or if he's dead, the black woman won't have access to him. So he's not going to be reproducing. And this is how you cull their population. And this is just showing that basically this excerpt on the right comes from the Moynihan report. The excerpt on the left is just a graph that's showing the unemployment rate from 1890 to 1990, right? So the excerpt on the right says, the fundamental overwhelming fact is that Negro unemployment, with the exception of a few years during World War II and the Korean War, has continued at disastrous levels for 35 years, right? That's what you look here. 1940, white unemployment was 9.5, black unemployment or non-white employment was 10.8. After 1940, it's double digits every year, right? Black unemployment is 9, white unemployment 4.9. In 1959, white unemployment 3.9, non-white 8.7. Like you can see it here, right? This gap is what they refer to as permanent unemployment. But the reality is these numbers are actually worse than what they show here. the unemployment rate for black people is actually higher because in unemployment, they stop counting people who give up looking for work. So all the people that the manosphere like to call Pookies and Ray Rays, they not even accounted for in an unemployment number because they only account for the people who are actually looking for work. The dudes who are in jail, the dudes who are on streets, the dudes who are hustling or in the black market or the underground economy, they're not even considered unemployed. They're not counted at all, right? And then when you adjust these numbers for down south versus up north, right? Down south, you have to remember that they have sharecropping, right? Black people are still put to work during menial labor in the south. But when you get to the northern ghettos, the real unemployment number in places like DC, Detroit, Philadelphia, Watts, Compton, right? The real unemployment rate is like 30%, right? And when you get to teenagers, like you got like 1 in 4 teenagers unemployed. So these are the conditions that produced, right? You got to remember, right? The March on Washington, all we remember was, oh, I have a dream speech. The March on Washington was called the March for Jobs and Freedom, right? Because black men have been basically economically castrated. They have been cut out of society. They have been left to basically wither away, right? We've been like, so if you look at the sign that the sister is holding right here, she says, civil rights plus full employment equals freedom. She's saying, if y'all give me my rights without any economy, like what use is my rights? And that's what Booker T. Washington was saying at the beginning of the 20th century. He was saying, listen, I've been through Reconstruction. I've been through Jim Crow. These white people won't let us starve if we don't do for self. But then you had the mulattoes who didn't care about the masses. He said, we don't care about you niggas starving. We got resources because our daddies have left us stuff, right? So we don't care about you Negro starving. We care about rights because we only care about the Negro problem as far as it concerns us as mixed race people. We don't care about the rest of the masses. And Du Bois, when he realized that in 1933, he abandoned, not only did he abandon the Talented 10th, he abandoned the NAACP. And that's when they started calling him a latter-day Booker T. Washington, right? So where we at right here? All right, so we got past. Are y'all understanding? Are y'all understanding in the chat? I just want to make sure we understand how we got to where we are right now, because I still got a little bit more to go. But how unemployment plays a role in population control for black people, right? I showed you how back during slavery, when they realized that slavery was coming to an end, or when people like Benjamin Franklin were pushing for slavery to end, right? They were saying, hey, I want it to end, not because it's not necessarily a good thing. I like the money, but I want this to be a white nation, right? And we bring in too many black people here. And then when slavery ended, they're like, how do we get rid of these black people? And they said a good way to get rid of the black people is to focus on the black male. If you can remove the black male from the community, if you can prevent him from procreating, a good way to prevent him from procreating is to make him not an attractive mate. Let's make sure he stays unemployed, right? So at the beginning of the this right here takes us into the 60s, and this was Malcolm's final warning to us, right? And Malcolm's final speech that he gives, you can find it on YouTube. You can, I think MalcolmX.org has the written speech, but he lets us know. He says they may have the gas ovens already built before you realize that they're hot. So he's trying to tell black people that, hey, you think that these white people ain't trying to kill us? I'm trying to tell you and show you that they are. They are trying to move us towards extermination. But you out here talking about integration and integrating lunch counters. He's like, no, we need to separate and do for self because they are literally trying to kill us. He's trying to get black people to understand that, but black people don't want to understand. But what happens in the 60s, right? Now, the great author, the great writer, the great historian, Laron Bennett Jr., was a writer for Ebony Magazine. He writes his book, The Challenge of Blackness. I believe he either wrote it in 1970 or 1971, but he's looking back at the period of the 60s, during the period of the Black Rebellion. And I just love this particular quote right here, because he's breaking down. He says, not to downgrade the valiant struggles of other people. The purpose rather is to underline the obvious and almost universally overlooked fact that most Black people received their freedom after a struggle which never approached the dimensions of Watts, Newark, or Detroit, not to mention the unprecedented national explosion which followed the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. It is clear from this, or it should be clear, that under different circumstances and in the face of a Watts or Detroit, President Johnson would have asked Malcolm X and Martin Luther King to form a government. What he's saying here is that the Black rebellion in America was so intense. He's saying that the Black rebellion in America reached levels and heights that you didn't even see on the African continent. But the Black rebellion, in face of it all, white people was like, nah, we ain't letting you niggas go. Meaning, like, you niggas ain't about to get, five states down there at the bottom. You ain't about to separate. Why? Because we see you as a threat, and our ultimate goal is to get rid of you, right? So this is too much to read, but you can find his book, The Challenge of Blackness. But basically what he's just breaking down here is he's showing how Black people went through multiple stages before they got to what he refers to here at the top of page 18 as the nationalist revolt, right? He said, and this revolt basically set things off, right? From like 1955 to 1968, America was burning, was set on fire because of the Pookies and because of the Ray Rays, was setting shit off in this country. But as a result, the state, they said, we ain't going to fix the problem for Black people, but let's study them so we can come up with an effective solution, right? So the state produced 4 inquiries into the Black problem during the 60s. The first one they produced in 1965 is called The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. It's affectionately known as the Moynihan Report. They produced a report in 1968 called the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, affectionately known as the Kerner Commission or the Kerner Report. In 1968 of May, they produced a report called Guerrilla Warfare Advocates in the United States, a report by the Committee on Un-American Activities. And in 1968, June, they produced a report called a Staff Report from the National Commission on the Causes and Prevention of Violence. All these reports were concerning Black people, more specifically Black men, because Black men were blowing shit up in this country. Black men were rising up. Black men were rebelling, right? So ultimately, as a result, the government decided to make a choice, right? And this excerpt that I have here comes from the Kerner Commission report from February of 1968. It says, in reaction to last summer's disorders has quickened the movement and deepened the division. Discrimination and segregation have long permeated much of the American life. They now threaten the future of every American. This deepening radical racial division is not inevitable. The movement apart can be reversed. Choice is still possible. Our principal task is to define that choice and to press for a national resolution. This brother, Samuel Yet, and I recommend everybody read this book. America made its choice, and its national resolution was to get rid of Black people, right? Samuel Yet released this book. I think he released it in 1973, but it's called The Choice, The Issue of Black Survival in America, The Extermination of the Black Man in America. So basically, America said, listen, we ain't about to give them their freedom. We need to turn up our birth control mechanisms, right? In the 40s and the 30s, right, when they was going to the Black woman and they were like, listen, you need to stop having, dealing with Black men. right? You need to get on birth control. Throughout the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, it was okay, we're just gonna make sure that this black man stays unemployed because then the black woman will reproduce with him. After the 60s, they say, listen, this ain't working. It's taking too long. It's unemployment, they still reproducing, even though they're unemployed. So in the 70s, what did you see? They hit our community hard with heroin, right? The end of the 60s, early 70s, they sent black men over to Vietnam to die, to be murdered in Vietnam. Flooded our community with heroin. In the 80s, they flood our community with crack cocaine, flood our community with images, movies targeted towards black men to impact the behavior of black male youth. In the 90s, you get mass incarceration where they're locking black men up by the thousands, right? There are more black men right now locked up in America than there are women locked up in the entire world. Right, the black male population in prison is almost bigger than the entire world prison population, or equal to. Like, so it's that serious. But this was the choice that the government made. But this goes beyond the scope of this particular discussion. But I just want us to understand that they essentially made their decision. They made their choice. Right? They studied. They got all their reports together, and they said, "Listen, we got to get rid of them." Right? This is the choice that we are making. So if we're focusing on the Moynihan report, two key takeaways from the report were as follows. It says that black men or black male unemployment is the reason for the conditions in the black community. But remind you, black male unemployment is due to structural or institutional racism. The desire of this country to get rid of the black population is why they keep the black male unemployed, right? It's why they keep the black male underdeveloped. It's why the black male is being gunned down in the street, because the focus of population control in this country is on the black men. The next takeaway in this report, and this one is very, 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 very important, right? It says the United States is approaching a new crisis in race relations. If you go down to the next highlight, it says there are two reasons. First, the racist virus in the American bloodstream still afflicts us. Negroes will encounter serious personal prejudice for at least another generation. We know that like 3 or 4 generations have gone by since the civil rights movement, and white people today are just as racist now as they were back then. Matter of fact, I would venture to say they are even more racist now than they were back then. And he says, second, 3 centuries of sometimes unimaginable mistreatment have taken their toll on the Negro people. The harsh fact is that as a group, I highlighted this for a reason. He says, the harsh fact is that as a group at the present time, in terms of ability to win out in the competition of American life, they are not equal to most of those groups which they will be competing. So he's saying that as a group, it's impossible for black people to integrate into the mainstream of America. It's impossible. Integration will never work as a group, which is why nationalists call for separation, because nationalists are concerned with the masses of our people. Masses are not only concerned with the elites or the mulattoes, right? Masses are concerned with the mass, or nationalists are concerned with the masses, right? So he says, individually, however, Negro Americans reach the highest peaks of achievement, right? Think Oprah, think Jay-Z, think Barack Obama, right? Name any individual. Right? They like to point to the token because they're saying individually, black people can make it into America, but the masses as a group collectively, they'll never be able to make it. That was the second key takeaway that we have to understand from this perspective, right? And
hey, real quick.
Yep.
For the people in the chat right now that's watching, listen, this is a presentation where my brother is teaching as to how we got here. I do not want no negative comments in my chat room. I will block you immediately. Do not bash black men. Do not bash black women. We do not tolerate that here. You can do that on them other channels. That is not tolerated here. You Negroes are going to come here. If you come here and decide to watch this presentation, we're going to sit down. We're going to watch it like we got some sense, and we're going to be respectful to each other. Black men and black women. We do not disrespect each other on George Macon's channel. Y'all know I don't have that. We most of us watching are adults. And yes, we have black men that swirl. I mean, that step outside and marry these and date these white women. We got black women that do it. So we got black women that bash on YouTube. We got black men that bash on YouTube. Do not bring your bullshit on my channel, please. I will block you. When you come here, you got to be respectful. I respect the sisters. I expect the sisters to respect the brothers. There's no reason for us to not be able to know how to act when we come to certain places. And I'm setting that standard on George's channel. So if y'all don't like it, get the fuck off my channel. Peace. Go ahead, brother.
I appreciate, and that's why I come on the George Macon show to present and to teach. Because George, you and I are alike in that we are looking for solutions, and we really trying to like teach and explain to us the reality of the situation, so that we can understand how to move forward. I ain't into bashing black women, and I don't support any black woman bashing black men. Right, so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, you can proceed. I'm done.
All right, we're going right now. But no, I just want to reiterate this: the first takeaway from the Moynihan report is that the condition of the black people is all about black male unemployment. If you can solve the black male employment crisis, then you can solve the black crisis in America, every other element. But I'm telling you, the black unemployment crisis is one that is created by the society, right? Remember, when you go back to the beginning of this presentation, right? And I showed you here from Thomas Malthus. He says, left unchecked, populations will grow. There's no reason why the black population in America is just stuck at 10%, unless there's somebody intervening with the growth of the population, right? There's no it's just not scientifically possible. And what I'm telling you is their means of controlling the population, right? What the Ben Franklin says, he says people increase in proportion to the number of marriages. And that is greater in proportion to the ease and convenience of supporting a family. So he's saying that if you want to get rid of a population, decrease the marriages. How do you decrease the marriages? A, you cause conflict between the man and the woman, but B, if the family can't be supported, right? Unemployment serves a purpose. This is what I'm trying to get us to understand. This all serves a purpose, right? So back to here. Like I said, first takeaway. It's about black unemployment, right? The conditions of black America are closely tied to black male unemployment, right? And the second point is, as it relates to integration, it is impossible for an outside group to integrate as a collective. You can only integrate as individuals, right? And this is when Du Bois comes to this realization, he comes to this realization during the Great Depression, because black people are suffering immensely. And Du Bois basically starts to make a pivot towards separation and towards nationalism. And as he makes this pivot, he is catching hell. They like, Du Bois, you are a latter-day Booker T. Washington. And so Du Bois resigns from the NAACP because he says the NAACP does not have a program that can address the economic needs of black people, right? He says, we black people need to separate. We need to focus on nationalism. But when he resigns, he writes an essay that's published in the Crisis magazine. And the essay is called A Negro Nation Within a Nation. Now, leading up to this essay, Du Bois had written several essays about race pride. He wrote essays about separation, about the importance of separation and the importance of cooperative economics. But listen to what he says here. And this is where Du Bois, like Carter G. Woodson, is condemning these talented 10th Negroes. He says, Any movement towards such a program, and by such a program, he means nationalism or separation. He says, any movement towards such a program is today hindered by the absurd Negro philosophy of scatter, suppress, wait, and escape. There are even many of our educated young leaders who think that because the Negro problem is not an evidence where there are few or no Negroes, this indicates a way out. What does that mean? Oh, when it ain't that many of us around, white people treat me nice. White people are, so I grew up around all white people. They so nice to me. Yeah, they're nice to you because there's only one of you, right? So he's saying that the smart Negroes think that the Negro problem is not in evidence where there are few or no Negroes. This indicates a way out, right? We've seen a lot of our entertainers during the 50s, the 60s, the 40s, the 30s going over to France. Like, oh, the French are so nice to black people. Like, do you know how many colonies the French have in Africa? Do you know the torture that the French have put on African people? They don't care when you're in France because there's only one or two of you, right? You're few in number, so they can afford to be nice to you. But go to an African colony and watch how they treat you, right? He says that they think that the problem of race can be settled by ignoring it and suppressing all reference to it. What does that mean? That I'm not going to mention racism. I'm not going to mention white supremacy. It don't exist. It's about me. It's about my ingenuity. It's about my will. Racism it's not even such thing as racism, right? So he says that these elites, so these talented Tims, and this is the boy speaking here. He says they think that the problem of race can be settled by ignoring it and suppressing all reference to it. They think that we have only to wait in silence for the white people to settle the problem for us. And finally and predominantly, they think that the problem of 12 million Negro people, mostly poor, ignorant workers, is going to be settled by having the more educated and wealthy classes gradually and continually escape from their race into the mass of American people, leaving the rest to sink, suffer, and die, right? So he's saying that the educated elite, they understand that the only way to integrate is as an individual.
So real quick, so that way the people don't lose it. So what we're hearing, this is Carter G. Woodson speaking again, right? Or is this the Boise? So this is the Boise speaking now, basically saying when I'm on O'Shea show, and I'm saying how the elite class are the ones, when they make it out, are the ones that build communities. This is what the Boise has said, and what we saw early on a half hour ago is what Carter G. Woodson said, right? So when I'm speaking, this is not George making words. This is the words from our ancestors. These are actually, this is ain't Pookie and Ray Ray. These were the ones that, because you had debauchery in the black community then too. They said the educated Negroes turn their back on their communities when they make it out and they assimilate. Am I accurate in my assessment, Omowale?
100%.
Okay, you can carry on.
Yeah, because what he's saying here is that educated people realize that they can't come over as a collective. So that's why he's saying that they believe that they can basically escape into the mainstream, right? Escape from their race into the mass of the American people, leaving the rest to sink, suffer, and die, right? So the reality is this: the black people who managed to make it into the mainstream, it only can last for one generation. And here's what I mean by that. A black person that is successful in America, most likely, statistics show that they're gonna reproduce the least amount of children, but more importantly, when they reproduce, they're most likely going to reproduce with a white person. And why is that important? Because what did Thomas Jefferson say with his mathematical equation? That after 1, 2, and 3 generations of that type of behavior, then you've essentially got the black out of them, right? So perfect example, right? The black elite. This guy right here, Daniel Murray, founded the first ever national black organization before the NAACP, before the Niagara movement. He founded, I believe it was called the Negro National Council or whatever it was called. But this dude is a black elite, right? But black elites practice what's referred to as assortative mating. They only mate with other light-skinned people or with white people. These are his descendants modern day, right? I want you to look at this picture here on the right. These are the descendants of this black man. Black men are not the only one to do it. Black women do it as well. If you look at Eartha Kitt, look at Eartha Kitt's grandchildren. They are as white can be. They're like Taylor Swift white. So, you know, when you hear people like, you know, Beyonce or Jay-Z or, you know, talk about, you know, their descendants are going to be super rich. No, what your descendants are not going to be is black, because you've integrated into the stream as an individual. But what white society understands is that 2 or 3 generations down the stream, like, who is Blue Ivy going to marry? What black man? Right? Because the masses are suffering. So we're pointing to these individual tokens, like, again, you know, again, we do well as individuals, but as a collective, we are suffering, right? So I just wanted to put this here so that we can understand this is what they have in mind for you, right? The black man that's a part of the masses, keep him unemployed. But the successful black man, it doesn't really matter, because the successful black man, although they're small in number, they're not going to make with the black woman anyway. So 2 and 3 generations later, we've successfully reproduced white people. So if you look at these people here, none of them look black. Right? Let me just keep it moving. Right? So what I did right there was I just gave the family, I just gave us all of the history behind black gender dynamics in America, and how, like Frances Cress Welsing told us at the very beginning of this presentation, right? For those who are just joining, what did Mama Frances Cress Welsing say? She said, failure to analyze the white supremacy dynamic is a deep tragedy, because this dynamic is the fundamental cause of the failed relationships between black males and black females, right? She's letting us know that our relationship as a people is one that has been socially engineered. So the hate that you have for black women as a black man is hate that you have been socially engineered to have. Your hate for black women, or a black woman's hate for black man, it serves a function. And the function that oh my goodness, the function that it serves is to make sure that black people are not reproducing. Now, I want to take us to the first wave of the Black Gender War, right? Because the Black Gender War did not always exist. Mind you, coming out of the 60s, we were trying to integrate as a group. We were trying to integrate as a collective. What did we find out coming out of the 60s? We found out that it is impossible for us to integrate as a group. So we need to separate, or we need to create stratifications and integrate as individuals, right? What else did we find out coming out of the 60s? We found out that straight black males are the anchor to the race problem, meaning that the race problem is targeted and focused on them. So if black women, black people can divorce themselves from straight black men, then maybe they have an opportunity to integrate into society. This is where you get intersectionality, right? Where black people, or intersectionality is basically an outgrowth of the integration movement, but intersectionality is extreme individualism. It's like, no, I'm not just black, I'm black and gay, or I'm black and woman, or I'm black and this. What that allows you to do is it allows you to create a special slice of what do you call it? A special slice of oppression that detaches you from black men, because you know that this country is never going to allow black men, especially straight black men, to successfully integrate as a collective. But I want to read this here to you here, and this is I think where we can pinpoint the engineering of the first wave of the Black Gender War, right? And this is an excerpt from Michelle Wallace's book, Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman, right? So she writes here, The American black woman is haunted by the mythology that surrounds the American black man. It is a mythology based upon the real persecution of black men. It's funny because she calls it a mythology. What she says is based upon facts. Castrated black men hanging by their necks from trees. The carcasses of black men floating face down in the Mississippi. Black men with their bleeding genitals jammed between their teeth. Black men shining shoes. Black men being turned down for jobs time and time again. Black men watching helplessly as their women go to work, support the family. Black men behind bars, persecuted by prison guards and police. Jobless black men on the street corner with needles in their arms, with wine bottles in their hip pockets. Black men being pushed out in front to catch the enemy's bullets in every American war since the Revolution of 1776. These ghosts, rendered all the more gruesome by their increasing absence of detail, are crouched in the black woman's brain. Every time she starts to wonder about her own misery, right? Mind you, now I'm telling you, this is where you're getting the separation, right? Like, let's not worry about the black collective because the black collective is suffering because of the black man. But if I think about the black woman, she says every time she starts to think about her own misery, to think about reconstructing her life, to shake off her devotion and feeling of responsibility to everyone but herself, right? This is where you get people like Kim A2, like not your mule, right? The black woman, you don't have a responsibility to the race. You only have a responsibility to yourself, right? This is the argument she's making. She says the ghost pounces. She is stock cold. The ghost talks to her. You crippled the black man. You worked against him. You betrayed him. You laughed at him. You scorned him. You and the white man. Not only does the black woman continue to see the black man historically as a cripple, she refuses to take seriously the various ways he's been able to assert his manhood and capabilities in recent years. Listen to what she's saying. She's saying that black men, it's funny, this isn't an intersectional argument because she's saying all black men, but she's saying black men in general, coming out of the civil rights movement, have been able to assert their manhood, right? She's saying, granted that many of his gains of the past decade have been temporary and illusory, but he is no longer a pathetic, beaten down slave. He's grown, progressed, developed as a man. And if one recognizes him as a man, he must begin to carry some measure of responsibility for what happens to him, right? So she's saying, what's happening to the black man, what happens to our sons, to our brothers, to our cousins, to our fathers, is no concern of the black woman. The black woman, if she is going to integrate and get the same gains that the black man has gotten, she must integrate on her own and stand on her own 2 feet, right? This is the argument that she's making here. This black woman from obscurity, now this is an elite black woman, mind you. Remember I told you the civil rights movement, and I did a lecture at Temple about a week ago on the difference between nationalism and integration, but also the difference between the civil rights movement and the black liberation movement. This is an elite black woman, college educated woman who comes from the civil rights movement, right? She gets placed on the cover of Miss Magazine, a magazine that was started by Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem, who we know worked as an asset for the Central Intelligence Agency. This white woman right here with her fist up, right? Intersectionality allows me to partner with a white woman to then integrate into the society, because that's a better partner to essentially gain my rights. But mind you, black nationalists are not trying to integrate. We understand that it is impossible to integrate as a collective. We do not embrace individualism. This is what she is selling. She's saying, focus on you and you only. But this, book that she wrote, she gets on the front cover of a magazine. It says, Special Report on Black Feminism from Miss Magazine, a magazine that was started by somebody who worked for the CIA. It says, Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman. This book will shape the 1980s. Now, mind you, I'm telling you that this is the first wave of the Black gender war. Because after her, you get people like Bell Hooks. Black men are only concerned with sleeping with white women and getting the power that white men have. Like, you get all this nonsense that comes out of Black feminism in the 1980s. But I want you to listen to what Dr. Valethia Watkins says, and this is very, very, very important. She says, I problemize the conscription of the intellectual tradition of African women in America of the 19th century and early 20th century into a Black feminist genealogy, particularly in light of the historical rejection of white and Black feminism by the overwhelming majority of African women and men. What is she saying here? She's saying that Black people have always rejected feminism, right? She's saying the exception to this general rule that Black people generally don't rock with feminism of rejection is largely localized to a highly visible, equally vocal, but very small group of African women in academia. What is she saying? That Black feminism, it's highly visible, right? But it's a very, very small group of Black women. It's just like on Twitter today. You got a lot of Black women, Black feminists with these blue checks. They don't represent the Black community. The Black community really don't rock with them at all, but they are propped up. Why are they propped up? Because they are propped up for this particular type of division. Why does this no-name person get on the cover of Miss Magazine to introduce Black feminism as if there's some type of like Black feminist movement? It's non-existent. There is no Black feminist movement. There's only the Black liberation movement and the civil rights movement. But during this period, again, they realized that, hey, we can't integrate as a collective. We have to integrate as individuals. This is where you get a few Black women, a very small amount of Black women. A lot of them were actually homosexuals. They were lesbians, gay, or whatever, but in the early feminist movement. And they become the face of Black feminism, but they are propped up by white society. Listen to what she's saying here. This book will shape the 1980s, right? So when you look forward at the 1980s and look at the 1990s, this wave one of the Black gender war. This is a clip from YouTube. It's Huey Newton, Ishmael Reed, and Dr. Ishmael Reed, Dr. Huey Newton, and Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. And they're basically on network television in the 1980s arguing about the depiction of Black men in The Color Purple, which was written by a Black feminist, right? You see it starting here. Then in the 90s, what do you see? You see a parade of Black women being ushered across national TV saying, Black men ain't shit. Black men are trash, right? And then you also see national TV, they're bringing Black men on national TV. I don't date Black women, I only date white men. This is where you see the beginning of the gender divide, this fighting between the 80s and the 90s, because they realized that you would have to separate these two, the Black male and the Black female, right? And I want to read this. This is another excerpt from Michelle Wallace's the Black Super Mantra, whatever it's called. But she says here, there was a misunderstanding between the Black man and the Black woman, a misunderstanding as old as slavery. The IOU was finally being called in. Apart from some occasional drunken ranting on a street corner, the Black man had held his silence admirably for centuries, right? So what is she saying? She's saying that Black men, maybe Black men did feel emasculated. Maybe Black women, were domineering over Black men. Maybe Black men felt some kind of way, but the Black man never said anything about it. She's saying the Moynihan Report, as preposterous a document as it was, combined with the heady atmosphere of the times to loosen the Black man's tongue. The Moynihan Report said that the Black man was not so much a victim of white institutional racism as he was of an abnormal family structure. She says its main future being an employed Black woman. She completely twists it on its head right there, because the main feature of the Moynihan Report was the unemployment of Black men. But she twisted and says that the opposite side is the dysfunction in the Black community is due to the employment of Black women, right? It's a complete red herring, right? But the reason why I wanted to start with this, because she's basically saying that the Moynihan Report gave black men a voice, and black men lashed out at black women with ferociously, with hostility, right? Because of this new voice that they had. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because throughout the 80s and the 90s, if you couldn't get on television as a black man or as a black woman to speak against this, the gendered hate that was coming from the opposite gender, you didn't have anybody to express it to. But the second wave of the black gender war happened with social media. What you see is in the early 2000s, you get the advent of YouTube, and black men felt that they finally had a voice. So you had dudes like Tommy Sotomayor, Sergeant Pete, whatever his name is, a whole gang, a whole segment of early black YouTube that was completely dedicated to shitting on black women. As a response to that, you get a whole gang of black women that are completely dedicated to shitting on black men. This is where you get the gender war on YouTube, right? YouTube was the early phase, but when you get the Facebook and Twitter, especially after 2012, when Trayvon Martin was murdered or lynched, and intersectionality becomes the dominant voice online, you get this second wave is just completely what Dr. Tommy Curry likes to call anti-black male or anti-black misandry, right? So I think we're all familiar with this clip right here, the one on the left, where his sister says she'll no longer march for black men. She's like, fuck y'all niggas, basically. I ain't marching or protesting for none of you niggas. The sister on the right is like, listen up, pro-black men. I ain't your motherfucking mule. You know what I mean? So this particular war, it's rooted, right? It's couched in this black feminist doctrine that we see coming out of the 70s, right? That mind you, it never existed. It only existed in academia. This stuff does not exist on the grassroots. These are elite, these are privileged black women on college campuses that have this type of ideology, right? But they get propped up. They're highly visible, but it's a small number, but they're spreading crazy online. Why is this being spread? And I'm coming to an end right now, Brother George. I hope I'm still good on time, but I'm coming to an end. The reason, again, just like the reason for black male unemployment, the reason for this socially engineered gender war between black men and black women is to keep us from reproducing with one another, right? This was a report that was put out by the National Geographic, or an article that was put out by the National Geographic last year in October. And it says, this is what the average face in America is going to look like by 2050, right? I just want us to understand the ethnic cleansing that's occurring here. I want you to understand how they manipulate the black population through things like the one drop rule, right? You never have a fair count of how many black people you have, because if one person has a drop of black blood in them, that person is counted as a black person. When the reality is that the darker masses, the struggling masses, are being erased and cleansed from society, because the goal is to ultimately reproduce a society that is white. It's to get this to a white nation. And the way you do that, again, is to focus on the black male. If you can keep the black male unemployed, if you can kill him, you can keep him in prison. And as long as he's not reproducing, as long as he's not an eligible mate, this is a socially engineered gender crisis that we're seeing in Black America. It's not something that Black men started. It's not something that Black women started. This was completely instigated by this government for the purposes of controlling our population, right? So I want to finish here with the question of Black survival in the 21st century. I'll be done in 5 minutes, and then we can open up the line for questions and take questions from the chat room. The eugenics movement has always been big in America. I showed you the quote from Margaret Sanger already. We now have Bill Gates out here like, hey, they're not too concerned about Black people in America right now. They feel that Black people in America are already conquered. this war between black men and black women, the black male unemployment situation. It's so good for them that they feel that by 2015, you ain't even gonna really see no black people. Now they're concerned about the broader population of black or African people globally, right? Bill Gates says one of the biggest problems the world is facing is rapid population growth in Africa, right? I want you to, this is important. This dude, Herbert Marcuse, he's the mentor of Angela Davis, right? The political prisoner, Angela Davis. He is a socialist. What he wants for black people is not good for black people. In fact, they've always seen the black population as a pawn, right? In his essay on liberation, the part that I have highlighted here in red, he says the ghetto populations may well become the first mass basis of revolt. And then in parentheses, he says, though not revolution. And it's important that you understand that, because in Marxist theory, they see black people as what they refer to as the lumpen proletariat. And that's basically an anti-revolutionary class of people, right? So they don't really see us, the only use that they see for black people in their socialist revolution is for us to basically be the pawns that burns the system down for them, right? So he's saying the ghetto population is an excellent source for revolt, right? We can use our media, we can basically manipulate them into fighting on our behalf, but ultimately they ain't really going to get nothing out of it. But I want you to turn your attention to what's highlighted at the bottom. And this is very, very important, especially when it comes to population control. It says, technical progress has reached a stage in which reality no longer need be defined by the debilitating competition for social survival and advancement. The more these technical capacities outgrow the framework of exploitation within which they continue to be confined and abused, the more they propel the drives and aspirations of men to a point at which the necessities of life cease to demand the aggressive performances of earning a living, and the non-necessary becomes a vital need. So what is he saying here? He's saying that technological process, and he wrote this in 1969. He said technological process is advancing to the point that things like jobs will be something of the past, where he says earning a living is something we'll no longer have to be concerned with because of automation, because of artificial intelligence. We can basically not even, people don't even have to worry about working anymore. And this is a major tool in the arsenal of the eugenicists and the people who look to control the population, especially the black population. Why is that? Again, one of the biggest problems in the world, this is by Vox, was with the Bill Gates interview. You see Vox, one of their supporters, Rockefeller Foundation. We know the Rockefeller Foundation has always been big on population control. But look right here. It says eBay founder Pierre Omowale, whatever his name is, to pay 26,000 Kenyans daily income for 12 years. Marcus Garvey said, any leadership that teaches you to depend on another race is a leadership that will enslave you. Right now, you have all these rich technocrats, your Bill Gateses, your Rockefeller Foundations, all of the Silicon Valley people. They're trying to promote universal basic income. You got Barack Obama right now all over the African continent preaching universal basic income. What is he saying? That society is getting to a point where there are no more jobs. No more jobs are coming back. So we need to create a living income that we can just basically give people checks, right? I want to show you this here. This article is from September. The first one on the left is from September of 2017. It says one of the biggest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley is launching an experiment that will give 3,000 people free money until 2022. It says Y Combinator, the largest and most prestigious startup accelerator in Silicon Valley, has announced new details of its upcoming experiment to give Americans free money. It says Y Combinator will select 3,000 people across 2 states and divide them into 2 groups. The first group will include 1,000 people who will receive $1,000 a month for up to 5 years. right? He's saying for up to 5 years, we're going to give these people $1,000. Why? Because we want to see how this basic income experiment works. These are people who don't have work. They don't have, we just give them free money, see what they do with it, see how they survive, right? They're testing the population. On the right here, this is from this year, as you see the date, September the 11th, 2018. It says, a basic income pilot in Mississippi will provide 15 Black mothers with $1,000 for free every month, and it could lead to a much bigger experiment. What are they doing here? They are preparing for a future where jobs no longer exist, where they control, just like in slavery, they control your universal reality, right? You're being fed hand to mouth by the government because there is no job for you in the economy. This is why the white nationalists are rebelling against globalism the way that they're rebelling, because they see the writing on the wall, right? They see what's been done to Black men, and they like, we ain't trying to end up like them. We know what we did to them. We don't want that done to us. But this is what's coming down the pike. This is one of the ultimate tools in the arsenal to control the population, right? Why am I putting this here? Now, this is just to our broader people, especially Black people, wherever you are that is not in America. This is for you, because I want you to see this Black gender war in America, but also I want, with this presentation, for you to understand the tools that have been used to manipulate the Black American population and keep us suppressed at 10%. The reality is we're probably a lot less than that, but we won't know, because we got people who are mixed race Black people, but they identify as Black. So, I mean, they get counted as a part of our population. I mean, that's neither here nor there. But I want to read this here. This is from Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. And he talks about the importance of the Black population in America, how we basically created a model for them to use on the Black race globally. This is what he says. He says, the American Negro has taken over an abundance of information which others have made accessible to the oppressed, but he has not yet learned to think and plan for himself as others do for themselves. Well, might this race be referred to as the most docile and tractable people on earth? This merely means that when the oppressors once start the large majority of the race in the direction of serving the purposes of their traducers, the task becomes so easy in the years following that they have little trouble with the masses thus controlled. It is a most satisfactory system, and it has become so popular that European nations of foresight are sending some of their brightest minds to the United States to observe the Negro in inaction in order to learn how to deal likewise with Negroes in their colonies, right? He's writing this at the beginning of the 20th century, right? He's saying that the French, the Germans, the Dutch, Belgium, right? They're sending observers to America to analyze how the white man in America has so effectively put a population control mechanism on Black people, has so effectively suppressed Black radicalism, so that they can use the same strategies used here in America on their colonies outside of America. He says, what the Negro in America has become satisfied with will be accepted as the measure of what should be allotted him elsewhere. Certain Europeans consider the solution of the race problem in the United States one of our greatest achievements, right? I told you what the white American race problem was. How do we get rid of these Negroes, right? How do we live in peace as white people without worrying about these Black people? The way we do it is by managing the population. So everything that you see, the Black gender war, the homosexuality, all the tactics they've used on Black people here in America, that they've perfected in America, they are now implementing on the continent. So you see people like Julius Malema. I mean, I love the brother, but like, he is intersectional, he's LGBT, he's very, very confused. You see a significant Black gender war starting to develop on the continent. You see Black feminism spreading like Christianity on the African continent, right? You see these NGOs going on the African continent and says, hey, we need to increase the education of Black women on the continent because that'll lower their fertility rates, right? They won't reproduce as many babies. And then you see them going on the continent and say, hey, we need to focus our economic development efforts on Black women, right? So they say, we're going to come to the continent with money, but we're only going to give it to Black women. If we give it to Black, and mind you, this has been the situation in Black America for forever. The Black woman has maintained, successful employment. And this is not a me saying, I'm not, please don't confuse. I am not blaming the problems of structural or institutional racism on Black women. I'm saying how the structure manipulates us economically in order to make sure our population is declining, to exterminate us, right? So this is the last slide that I have in the presentation. And then Brother George, let's open it up for Q&A and bring some people on the panel. Marcus Garvey wrote this before 1923, The Tragedy of Race Extinction. He says, when the colonists of America desired possession of the land, they saw that
real quick. Let's just moonwalk back for a minute.
Yep.
When you mentioned Julius Malema, what was it that you said real quick?
I said that Julius Malema has adopted an intersectional leftist philosophy, ideology, and LGBT philosophy.
Right. Okay.
These are all things that those who look to control and manipulate populations use to control the population. Right. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing told us how they use homosexuality, and homosexuality is something that is being pushed heavily on the African continent. Now, right. if they can get revolutionaries on the African continent to be pro-homosexuality, it helps them achieve their end.
Yeah, because you got some people in the chat room that think that you're lying about that.
About what?
About Julius Malema's that stance that you just put out there on Julius Malema.
I mean, well, I guess the challenge is I sometimes I don't think our people understand different ideologies. But right. Julius Malema is what you will refer to as a leftist. You know what I mean? He's a leftist, Marxist type revolutionary. If you go to his Wikipedia, he talks about his ideology. But he is, as being a leftist, he is pro-LGBT. This is not debatable. This is a fact. You know what I mean? So he's pro the proliferation of LGBTness, on the continent. This is not something you can debate.
Okay, yeah, because we have some people in the chat, they like to sensationalize certain things. So,
listen, I've been following Julius Malema and the economic freedom fighters before their clips became popular on YouTube or on social media this year. I've been following them for the past 5 years. When Julius Malema was in the youth wing of the ANC, what people got to understand is I'm a Pan-Africanist. Right, so I follow what's happening with African people globally, and I follow the politics of people globally. I'm not shitting on Julius Malema. That is my brother, right? I think that we are engaged in the same struggle, but what I'm seeing him doing is adopting the same ideology.
Real quick, because I want you to keep moving forward. Sister Chantal, I don't know if you're here to get edified and learn or cause confusion. This presentation will be up for you to go do the research. Some things you may not understand, you right there on your computer, just go and Google what he's saying before you put confusion inside the chat room. The brother's doing a presentation. If it's some things, if you are sure, then we can drop the link and you can come on and you can question the brother about it. I will drop your email. I will send you the link. You can come on here and you can ask Brother Omowale Africa whatever you need to ask him. Other than that, I'll mute the mic and you can finish.
Yeah, this is just my last slide, man. This from, I started with the elder Francis Cress Welsing. I'm going to end with the elder, our ancestor, Marcus Garvey. He says, when the colonists of America desired possession of the land, they saw that a weak Aboriginal race was in their way. What did they do? They got hold of them, killed them, and buried them under the ground. He says, this is a fair indication of what will happen to the weaker peoples of the world in another 200 or 300 years, when the stronger races will have developed themselves to the position of complete mastery of all things material. What is he saying here? He's saying that when the white race, the stronger races of the world, will have advanced so far technologically, once they get to that point, they will move rapidly towards exterminating the rest of the population. Right? This is what he's saying right here. Listen to what Garvey is telling us. And mind you, this dude, Marcuse, was saying the same thing in '69. He was saying that technological progress has reached the stage where we envision a world where humanity won't even need to work. They're actually doing the experiments now where they're giving income to people for free, not to work, right? Because they're like, this is going to be the future of society. He says they will not then, as they have not in the past, allow a weak and defenseless race to stand in their way, especially if in their doing so, they will endanger their happiness, their comfort, and their pleasures, right? What is Bill Gates saying? He's saying that the most severe, he's saying that the biggest problem the world faces is the population growth in Africa. Why? Because that threatens my comfort. That threatens my reality, right? So Garvey is saying that if we remain defenseless, meaning if we continue to act as individuals instead of as one fist, we're four fingers and a thumb, and we continue to move as individuals and not as one fist, then we are weak and subject to be exterminated, right? So it says the time has come for those of us who have the vision of the future to inspire our people to a closer kinship, to a closer love of self, because it is only through this appreciation of self will we be able to rise to that higher life that will make us not an extinct race in the future, but a race of men and women fit to survive, right? This is what Garvey is saying. So this is why I'm giving this presentation, right? Because as a black man, I need to repair the kinship links between black men and black women. Because without those two, you have no black family. And without no black family, you have no survival for black people in the future, right? So that's why I'm giving this presentation. I'm trying to help us to understand whose ends this black gender war serves. And if you continue to participate in this gender war, you are literally operating as an agent of white supremacy, right? So we can't blame black women for the conditions of the black community. We cannot blame black men for the conditions of the black community. If anything, we have to blame both of our inaction, but at the end of the day, these are structural realities that somebody, our enemy, is put in place for the purpose of getting rid of us. And if we don't understand that at this point, you know, like Amos Wilson said, or like Malcolm X said, they'll have the gas ovens will be built and heated before you even know. I'm done.
Man, that was man. I'm speechless, man. That was super fire, man. Like that was a lot to process. You know, that was a lot to process because I think that. Hold on a second. Excuse me a second. 1 second. All right. Yeah. That was a lot to process, man. You know, I think that you know, we need to use these YouTube channels for these type of presentations, for this type of information for those that's willing to get it. For black men and black women that's willing to work together, unite, understand that we are under attack, we are under siege. The black family has been decimated. And you basically laid it out as to how the enemy is attacking us.
Yeah.
The ways we're being attacked. You laid out strategies as to how the elders told us back in the early 1900s as to how we can get ourselves out of it. You know, there was a lot of things said, you know, in this presentation. I got brothers on the platform now. I got my brother Q Butter. I got my brother D Red. I know Moses Jenkins is going to come in a minute. If there's any women that's in the chat room now that want to come on as a woman and ask some questions, drop your link and I'll let one or two women come in. If you, yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead and get your water.
I'm gonna use the restroom. I don't want to like 3 bottles of water.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Let me take this other thing down because I got an echo. Hold on. Get this echo off here. Yeah. Yeah, so I got my man Q Butter. Q Butter, mute your mic.
What's good, family?
What's happening? Um,
Like,
yeah, you got a lot of static coming through.
oh, give me 2 seconds.
All right. Yeah, we gotta if there's I'm checking the chat now. If there's any women that want to come in, where KRT at? KRT usually in the chat. Reasons why. You want to come in, reasons why? We got Lisa Ask You. Y'all want to come in? Ebony Knowledge. Y'all want to come in and ask some questions?
Yes,
Uh yeah. Come on. Yeah, Book My Duty. What's up, brother? So what do you think about the presentation, bro?
Yo, I'm better. Got the static out.
Yeah, it's out.
Oh no, his presentation was A1, A1, and I'll never get too many people A1. Stats like that. He did a great job. Shout out to the brother, man. Omowale. That was great.
What do you when we speak about these gender wars and seeing the historical accounts of what the brother laid out, um was you able to see the whole thing from start to finish?
I saw a decent portion, but like I'm kind of informed to a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. So I'm of the same opinion and stuff. So now, I
Okay.
didn't see a gender war. I just did a couple of videos on that myself, and you and I always talk about that, like
Right.
that's all, a facade.
Yeah. We both call it the gender manipulation, but we named it the gender wars based off the way that our people are going after each other through their ignorance. They don't understand what from you having a school. This brother right here that's on the platform now. For those of y'all that don't know Q Butter, he actually has a school where he works with children in Brownsville, Brooklyn, right in the hood. I'm talking about in the heart of the hood. He has a science lab where he works with children. So I would ask you, brother Q, as a brother that's on the ground, putting in the work, how do you think that we can implement some of the things that Carter G. Woodson said and the Boise was saying back then to dispel these myths?
Well, honestly, I think cutting off the crackers box, like I put that in the feed. Luckily for us and where I'm at in Brooklyn, I realize it's not like that. A lot of places, you in Philly, we're surrounded by black, and so I can find 1,000 people in New York that are of the same like-mindedness. It's kind of difficult to do that in some other places. So it may seem as though our playing field is really all over the place. Some places are doing it, and that's why I'm saying that. Some places like there's tons of black charter schools. That is an African-centered Marcus Garvey school that just opened up in East New York. There's a lot of programs that are being led by strong black men and black sisters. LaShawn Muhammad runs the Central Brooklyn Economic Development Corp. We got Brother Mitchell, who got Man Up. He just opened up 2 free clinics. He has programs in almost 10 different community centers. There's a lot of brothers on the field out there, and not just in New York, they're all over the place. But we have to come to terms with the enemy isn't as easy as we think they are. And I think a lot of times we downplay, like in the chat, a lot of people were saying like, yo, it was the sister's fault, it's the brother's fault, it's both our faults. No, it's these crackers' fault. They killed all of our leaders. They murdered our leaders and imprisoned them. They poisoned our books. Like the brother laid it out perfectly. So I don't, legally in the court of law, you can't justifiably hold somebody accountable when they went through all of these things. Just in the sense of where we are in 2018, when you think about everything we've been through, I could never hold my sisters accountable. They put crack in our systems. They put crack in our communities. They poison our schools. The brother, I don't know if he touched on economic zoning and educational zoning and the effects of educational zoning in our community, and how that's one of the tools used to make sure that our community is organized from the get. How we do it, and a lot of the prisons, a lot of people don't even like to talk about the prison industrial complex, but it's bigger than the prison industrial complex. It's the cracker industrial complex, where your child is taught from 5 years old. Now they're doing free. What's it? It's not even pre-K. They have a new one now they just created where they're taking 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds now in New York, giving them the parents free access to this stuff. and they're shipping them into the school systems. Now you got to get these different vaccinations. Now we got ACS involved. Now we got the cities involved. You got all these different people monitoring involved with your child. They got an OSIS number at 3 years old. They're already in the system. Then if you suddenly want to take your child out of the system, now you got a bunch of people holding on to your child. So that we have to look at each component. And the brother broke it down. I don't want to, you know, he really went into it on his bill. But we got to look at the tools that they're using to maintain their position of power and the position of their racist position that they have against us, and start taking down these institutions. You know, remove the crack out your house. Stop watching TV. Stop watching their movies. And if you do watch them, make sure you talk about them with your children. Make sure you think about it after, you cognitive of what's going on, and you're really addressing the fact that the enemy of ours is no joke. There's a reason why this crack is where he's at. You know, they made submachine guns. They got jets. They got all different. The technology that they have is so crazy, and we're over here thinking that it's a black woman's fault. They created crack while we were sitting here thinking about using guns and standing with guns in front of the White House and standing with guns in front of our community centers and different things. They were in the labs using high fructose corn syrup and funny packaging to destroy our community. They used educational zoning to lock us into a certain position so that our children are getting fed this from early on. Like, we can go into all of these different things that they're doing, so we got to defend it against that.
Right. We got all right. I got who I got on here. I got Moses just came in. I got my brother Red. Hold on. We got a echo. Q, mute your mic, Q. Yeah, we got D Red. I'm mute D Red. You there, D Red?
Yeah, I'm here. What's going on?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Hey, my brother DZ Ali, I sent you the link, so you can come on. DZ Ali, my brother from Florida. Yeah, D Red. Did you see most of the presentation?
Yeah, I seen a lot of it, man. I seen a lot of it.
So from your studies and your teaching, what you think about the presentation?
The brother presentation was excellent, man. It was actually one of the better presentations I've ever seen on YouTube, period. I mean, his subject matter was on point. He made his point. He justified his stance. It was excellent. I mean, and that's something that we got to understand. Like, we be talking about revolution and nation building, but nation building starts in your house, and that's the thing that our ancestors, our immediate ancestors, they understood that. They understood that marriage is the foundation of everything. So now you got that helpmate to help you stand beside you through the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations. And we always talk about Black Wall Street, but they don't tell you that O.W. Gurley and J.B. Stratford, they were both married. You see what I'm saying? The founders of Black Wall Street were married. You look at Garvey and you look at his wife, Annie Jace Garvey, you know what I'm saying, what she did taking a bullet for him. I mean, when you look at our long history, our history was initially plagued when we came to the country. We're not even being able to get married, but once we was able to be married, we got married and sustained families, and it's been a concerted effort by our open enemy to stifle that, because that is the key to everything, the family. If you want a nation build, a nation is nothing but a collection of families working together with the same common goal, you know what I'm saying, in the same direction. So for us to try to do, think we're going to do this as an individual, me just as a man, or Q just a man, and George just a man, it's going to take our wives to get together and our women to get together to come, and if they, while we working together and come up with our plan and our military strategies, it's up to their plan. It's up to them to come up with a plan on how they're going to get the children and make sure the children stay on point, so we can have our visions executed through them. You know what I'm saying, with our children. So it's like I said, the brother did an excellent job on the presentation.
Okay. I got my brother. I'm just going down the line now to ask the brothers what they thought about the presentation. Brother Moses, coming in. I know you was in the car. Did you see most of the presentation?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great. What did you like about the present? Tell me what you thought about the presentation.
I thought the presentation, it was a heck of a lot of information to digest, and it was good because it was comprehensive, right? It's not just playing one side, but it's getting a number of different sources and information, data, so it can kind of help a lot of people who like a lot of different things. So if somebody really wants the history, that was inside of it. If somebody likes, like the Boynham report, they got the sources that they can go back and look up and get deeper context from those. Folks who really like to read, there's books available to where you can get an entire perspective that can kind of either support what you might believe already, or it can kind of give you something as a basis to say, well, I don't agree with this, or this, but you can get the context. So whatever your style of learning is, whether it's just listening and watching through YouTube, or whether it's through reading and comprehending, whether it's through the data, just show me the numbers. He had substance inside of his presentation that can meet a lot of folks. So I liked that it was comprehensive. Second thing, the visuals. I like that he has the PowerPoints, and I saw in the chat that there were some folks who would be interested in actually receiving a copy of the PowerPoint so they can go over the information, read some more of the information, and kind of follow up that way. And I think that's going to be helpful too, right? Because we have a lot of folks who are on multiple channels, right? They go to the O'Shea's, they go to the House of Consciousness, they go to some of the the more women empowered or Black women empowered networks like Cynthia G's fans and such. Some of them who go to the financial. And so because they have the PowerPoint, now they have more information in their arsenal when they're engaging folks in those chats, and they're better able to call bullshit, especially when they start going up against diverging opinions that don't seem to be pro-Black, those opinions that don't give enough context around the real plight that the African American man is facing in order to become more competitive with the other civilizations of men, not just here in America, but on a global scale, not just in a physical sense, but in a mental and intellectual warfare, not just in one that we're not just dodging bullets, but how do we move up the economic ladder? How do we move up in the educational ladder? How do we have our culture and our arts respected, like Van Goghs and Monets and our painters, our illustrators, our storytellers? We've always been an oratorical people. And so I think he showed a level of mastery even in that, in demonstrating it. It doesn't have to sound like a preacher, a hoop or a holler. Don't have to end the sermon with now here's my PayPal and my Snapchat to support it. But I'm just going to give you this information free of charge because you're here today, which shows me that you're interested in these type of builds. And so that's point number two, the visual elements and the content itself being diverse in its, I have data, I have history, I have a lot of different views for you. One thing that I would like to point out, so I gave two positives, I'm gonna give one feedback, is on the presentation itself. Some of the slides were content heavy, like a lot of writing. And when I'm watching, especially from the car, I'm not able to read like that fine print. The font is too small for me to actually be able to read. And so then I'm listening, but if I was one of those people who can't listen and interpret the message, then I would have been trying to read it. So I would only, as just a point of feedback, some of those ones, follow those up with like the big picture, like the snippet, the bullet points that you want them to take away, so that they don't have to try to read from the fine print. And then like the big pictures, like the next slide, if you use a lot of font on one slide, then the next slide should just only be a picture so that people can see the picture and then listen to what we're saying a little bit more. Because when I was in the chat, I had to turn the chat off. One of our sisters, Cynthia G, was going in. She's asking very powerful questions, but it started to, in my mind, even distract me from what my brother was saying. So I couldn't read it. And now what I am reading is some of her comments, and I'm almost getting drawn towards the distraction or the sidebar comments inside of the chat. And now I'm tuning out a little bit. So in order to try to keep control in this YouTube setting where we are listening to your voice, and if you're going to do the presentation, sometimes it helps. Like Brother George, what, like your evening conversations that you have when you'll show the big picture and then you'll kind of slide down. That kind of helps me when I'm kind of distracted already a little bit, because I see the picture. I can zoom in on, like, especially when you're going on the Black inventors and such. I can look at the picture, and then that's all I needed to see. And now I can listen to you speak, and it kind of helps me tune out the comments. So overall, I love the presentation, love the information. That's what I'm here is for, the information. I like the sources. I like the books. I am one of those readers. So that's what works for me. But for those folks who need to be entertained a little bit more, I would say have those pictures. And it's not sensational. You don't have to show the pictures of the Black folks hanging in order to make your points. You're going data for data. You're showing, like, one of the slides that really stood out to me was like the whitening effect, the brown paper bag effect is what I like to call it. When you're looking at the affluent Black men and how they're breeding towards lighter and lighter and lighter. And so that is still the 1%. They are still considered Black, but are they really anymore? Are they really ascribing to Black liberation or Black nationalism? Or are they trying to push this distracting narrative of individualism? So I can go on and on. I know I'm a little bit long-winded, but I'm gonna stop right there.
All right, Sister Chantel, I sent you the link. Whenever you're ready to come on in. Was it Phenomenal Lady 40? I sent you the link. So whenever you want to come in. Before I bring my brother DZ Ali in, I just think that these type of lectures for the channel is important. We're going to have a bunch of these coming up. I'm actually going to pressure my brother Moses Jenkins now to step up and bring one to the table. I know D Red is locked and loaded and ready. We supposed to have been did one, so D Red is going to come. So what I'm setting up for the channel, man, is a lot of positive brothers, man. That this is going to be an information zone. You come through here, we're going to be dropping scholarship, information and solution based as to how we got here. So me and Omowale, we talked on the Hangouts about a couple different things and different topics that we want to bring. So Moses, I'm on your ass. I want a presentation from you, bro. We want to talk on the Hangouts.
I got you, big bro.
Because I know you were mad. I know you was debating in college, so I know you know how to put this thing down.
Yes, sir,
I even want to set up something where we actually have a kind of like, remember the movie The Debaters?
Yeah.
I actually want to have something where, like, my brother Omowale was talking about what was Omowale? It was integration and national. What was it again called? Omowale?
The integration versus nationalism.
Yeah. I want us to do like when we pick like teams and we actually do like a great debaters, like integration versus nationalism, where somebody could play Garvey, I could play a Du Bois. I mean, and it's like we inside, and like we can actually go from their quotes, and we can basically break down the difference between integration and nationalism. I want to do that. I think that's also information wise, and it's also entertaining. Like if you actually can get somebody to actually play the role of Booker T. Washington. And we're actually having a debate, like on the movie Great Debaters, but we also bringing the information. I mean, what y'all think about that?
Yeah, that's fire right there.
I can dig that.
Well, I'm playing Garvey. I'm the hardcore guy, so I know.
I'm taking Booker T. Washington, integration for 100.
I don't know. Omowale might not let you take.
I take Bishop Billy McNeil Turner in opposition to Booker T. Washington.
Yeah, that's something we're going to talk about that on the back channel. We're going to put it together and we can do a debate. We can do a debate actually bearing those characters. What you think about that, Omowale?
I'm definitely I'm always from the national perspective.
Right.
Even with tonight, I tried to end the call towards Black nationalism. I think it's let me say really quick before I say something. In terms of the brother D Red, brother Malcolm, brother Q Butter, I definitely appreciate the feedback, and I'm just digging the energy like on the panel. I heard the brother D Red speaking the other day when you was on the panel on capitalism versus socialism. he was dropping it. You know what I mean? I was in the chat like, damn, I wish I could be on because like it's the same type time I'll be on. But just the energy of black men that are at the table to understand that black women haven't caused the situation that we in. Black men ain't caused the situation then. Like we actually are in a battle, right? Sun Tzu said, to know yourself and to know your enemy, right? You don't have to fear the results of 1,000 battles. Our problem is we know ourselves, but we don't understand our enemy. And I think that that's what Brother Q Butter was getting at when he kept saying that we underestimate and how sophisticated this enemy is and how sophisticated we have to be to develop solutions to counter what he's doing to try to destroy our community all across the globe. So I appreciate the feedback from the brothers on the chat, and I mean I'm here. I'm definitely trying to keep going.
I wanna bring my brother DZ Ali in. He been waiting. Brother Ali, I know you was in the chat for a while. What do you think about the presentation? What's your opinion on the presentation?
Well, first and foremost, peace and power to you, Mr. George. Concerning the presentation that we were given by our brother Omowale, I would say that it was an excellent presentation, sir. Excellent. I can't say anything negative about it. I wouldn't if I could, because the brother put himself out there and presented us with information that we can all use. Am I coming through fine?
Yeah, you're great.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Darn, just lost my train of thought. But yeah, that was an excellent presentation. It gave us so much information that I must admit that I could not digest it all, because I was partaking in the chat that you have going on. The live chat was hot and popping, so later on probably going to have to play this back so I can fully digest all of the information that was shared with us. But all in all, the brother gave us excellent information.
Let's do this. Within the presentation, it was a couple times when, early on in the presentation, you spoke about Carter G. Woodson and how he spoke about the talented 10th. And I can say for me, I'm knowledgeable of the talented 10th, but not as knowledgeable as you guys. Brother Omowale, are you able to articulate and really break down the talented 10th and why Carter G. Woodson would make the statement that he made about the talented 10th?
Yeah, the talented. All right, I'm getting a little feedback.
Yeah, let me mute my mic.
Yeah, the talented 10th is an idea that's often attributed to W.E.B. Du Bois. But the reality is the idea of the talented 10th came from one of his, I think a professor that he had when he was at Harvard. It wasn't even his own idea. The idea that a tenth of every population is the exceptional men or women of the population. And those are the people that we should turn to for leadership and for upliftment. But very, very early on, I think that it took Du Bois a while, but he eventually abandoned the whole concept of the talented 10th. He saw that the talented 10th was really individualistic. They were only concerned with the race problem as far as it concerned them individually. They weren't concerned with serving the masses at all. And I think that during the Great Depression, which is when Carter G. Woodson and Du Bois were really shitting on the talented 10th heavy because of their inaction, but also because of their willful service to white supremacy. You know what I mean? Like I was messing with you a little bit earlier about, you mentioned Frederick Douglass. With Frederick Douglass, like his idea of racial upliftment was to basically make the race problem go away. And what he meant by go away, he felt that we should amalgamate, meaning we should basically, as black men, we should sleep with white women. And then eventually, we'll produce a population of people that are neither black nor white. That was his goal. That's how he felt we would solve the race problem. That's why I say I don't really There are things that Frederick Douglass definitely contributed, but from that talented 10 perspective, their goal really is to just make it over into the mainstream. And the thing about mainstream America is, and I think that this is why we as a people, like, we're so short-sighted, and in many ways we're very childlike. We want that immediate gratification, but we don't think about our progeny, right? When we talk about generations, once you make it into the mainstream as an individual, there's no community of people there that are like you. So in order to reproduce, you have to reproduce with the dominant society. That second generation, your children will be mixed race. Chances are they're going to engage in the same practice that you did. They're going to reproduce with the dominant society. So their children will be mixed race, right? And by the time you get to that third generation, your blackness is no longer there. Like it's been bred out. So the idea of the talented 10th is one that we did away with a long time ago. But I think that people don't engage with the history, so they keep it going. Like, I was watching a channel the other day where a brother was talking. I'm not going to say any names, but he was talking. He was basically using a lot of talented 10 talking points, and I'm like, man, this shit played out back in the 1920s, but he's still talking about it in 2018. So I ain't gonna keep going. I want to keep it open so the bill can flow.
I want to take that same energy over to Moses, because I want to get Moses' opinion on the same question. Moses, he spoke. Carter G. Woodson spoke about the talented 10th and how they was part of the how they basically was destructive to the black community as well. And then Du Bois doubled down sometime later and spoke on the talented 10th too. What is your opinion? Because I'm not as knowledgeable as you guys on the talented 10th. What is your opinion on the talented 10th and how it also affects us today with these black conservatives or so-called black progressives?
From a historical lens, the talented 10th was a good band-aid at best. There was war and conflict. There was still deep-seated racism. There was a lot when it comes to what should we do with these Negroes, this Atlanta Compromise. Start with W.B. Du Bois. The question of what should we do with these free Negroes who don't have a legal or a court system, don't have markets, don't have land and wealth, don't have resources, not fully integrated inside of these old town societies, not going to get jobs outside of their skilled labor, now looking at trying to get contracts, but are still not the most literate of people, or accepted even with their literacy. What is the solution? I think the talented 10th was a plea for education, and a plea for more universal education rather than an industrial education, one that was labor-based and agricultural-based. It was one of a sense of title and dignity in having that knowledge and transferring that knowledge, but I believe it came with the expectation at that time that they would become the teachers who then come back to their isolated black communities or their communities, their people, their churches, their tribes, their interconnected families, and that because they were now literate, because they did have business degrees and sense, that they would be able to then convert resources into products, and products into businesses into markets into broader systems. So I think that the talented 10th could have been more productive had it also been backed with
real quick.
Something stronger.
Real quick. Come on, sisters. Come on with the nigga shit in the chat. Come on, y'all. Please. Come on, Ebony Knowledge and my sister Lisa Askew. We gotta look. We need peace. We need love. It's easy for us to beat up on each other. That's the easiest thing to do. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just not even pay each other no mind. Let's just get this information, man. Let's not get distracted. We beat up on each other all the time. I don't even care who right or who wrong or who started it. Let's just fall back from that. Let's not beat up on each other in the chat room, y'all. Come on, y'all. Keep going, Moses.
That was actually about it. So there was a lot of land. Like, I'll go into it from the on our later debate when I'm taking the when I'm taking the Booker T. Washington position. But when it comes to those land grants, you know about the Homestead Act and everybody moving west, the Mississippi and that fertile ground and keep going past the Mississippi, which was one of the most racist. What are you going to do with that land? How do you cultivate it? When you cultivate it, are you doing it to create a surplus that can sustain communities, or are you doing it from an individual perspective? Today, our talented 10th are still looking out for, what does somebody say, like service to your colonial masters, or service to others is the greatest thing. But defining the others as being every society versus defining the others to be your family, your interconnected families, your communities, in that sense. So my garden, my backyard garden, my acres, my land, I grow enough food for us, but I also have a surplus to provide for my village, and my village all are employed on that land, or they have equal land for themselves. What do we do with our surplus? That creates the markets, and that's what that land was for. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough educated brothers. I guess if they're saying that education was the thing, that's it. That's a big premise. First of all, it didn't overcome white supremacy in the first place. That was it. It never overcame white supremacy. So even as educated as you were, the black folks were not entitled to those same land grants, that same Homestead Act. Very few were able to actually do it, and then do so from the manner that could employ other families and communities. So if the idea was getting that education, being able to then go back in your community and educate them as a teacher, I like it. But it still had to go up against the forces of white supremacy, so where it is still accustomed to win or lose. That's what I would say about that.
Okay. Hey, my brother Q, you still here, Q Butter?
Yeah, I'm here, kid. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, let me ask you. With that being said, from my brothers, because Omowale broke down Frederick Douglass, and then my brother went on. He took the more Du Boisy way. With the talented 10th going on at that time, when they wanted to basically embrace the institutions, from a more Garvey aspect of that time, what do you think? Why do you think Garvey was getting so much vitriol from the so-called talented 10th and the educated blacks?
Well, Garvey is the beginning of black nationalism, the foundation of it. So that period is a lot going on during that period. You have a lot of push of nationalism across the white field. You have black ideology, black ideological thought being birthed at that time outside of the church, and or is about to be birthed. And so the people who are part of the institutions and their need to be successful within them was also designed through eugenics, designed through the people who were laying out the groundworks for what we're going through now. And so the talented 10, they were picked out to go to schools that were created by white people. Many of the historical black colleges were created by white people, by white eugenicists who were there doing exactly what the brother Moses just said, using their money and their resources to further white supremacy, using surplus to further develop the ability for white supremacy. So think about that. You got Roosevelt, you got the Carnegies, you got the top money. I think he put up almost equivalent to $1 billion in 1902 towards education. And he spent millions of dollars on black education. That was the reason why the brother just said it. The education system couldn't give us anything. But at this time, out of Marcus Garvey's thought processing, it spawned the Nation of Islam. It inspired the Nation of Islam. It inspired the Noble Jurali movement, and inspired further movements to go on that embraced the need for a black ideological thought, and then further the need to be independent. And that to me brought on, that led on to the Malcolm X position, and ultimately the brothers that were against the system. But that all is a story that had to progress together. We had to go through the talented 10th. And even with the talented 10th, to me, it still exists today in many different ways. If you talk to a 5%er, they're going to tell you that 85% of the population is deaf, blind, and dumb. And then 15% have the knowledge, 10% is going to use it for their personal gain, and it's up to the 5% to actually defend the world, defend the black nation. This is what we were taught. This is what the Nation of Islam teaches their brothers. And so there's still an understanding that 10% is going to be there. They're going to be within the networks of white supremacy and being pushed to be, what the world wants to see. But their reality is falling apart, and they, like the brother said, they don't have a real education. They're not able to bring anything to fruition out of it. And so they don't have the answers for the Black community. They'll never have the answers for the Black community because they was birthed out of the white community. And that's exactly what Marcus Garvey would tell them. There's nothing you could do for your people because you were birthed from a white man's hands. Your entire perspective is from a white man's hand. And so Marcus Garvey represents the beginning, not to say the beginning, but for the world to know that we are now thinking about ourselves in our own light, in our own hands, and by our own accords. And that was something that was very difficult for people who were birthed by white hands to even, digest it anyway.
Let me do this real quick before I come to my brother D Red and my brother Ali. We got a sister on the panel. Sister, you was in the panel. You had some disagreements with certain things when you was on the panel. So I asked you to drop the link so you can unmute yourself. And brother Omowale, let me unmute you because I don't know if she know how to unmute herself. And why didn't I unmute? Hold on. Shit. Why is not unmute? Unmute yourself, sis. Unmute your mic. Turn everybody up. She don't know how to unmute her mic. Why is it not unmuting? I'm trying to unmute it. I'm trying to unmute it myself. It won't unmute.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Hello?
I think she's unmuted. She just got to talk.
Yeah, go ahead. Wait a minute. Let me turn her. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
1 second.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, my disagreement basically was it all ended up. The lesson went into a part about the Black women basically becoming an issue to the Black man, and how the war started on the Black gender war began online, and it went into that. And my thing is, it should never lead into what the Black woman is doing. That is not the issue at hand. The issue is never what Black women are doing, and that's a deflection of that Black men use to take their eyes off of the real problem. The real problem is the systematic structure that we live under. It is not the Black women. You understand? So that's where I came in with the disagreement.
But let me say this real quick before Omowale go in. When you have educated Black people that's not known for bashing Black women, and we're on here and we're actually doing a lecture and we're teaching the strategies of white supremacy and at the actual acts of warfare, Black women and Black men, everything is on the table and everything is accountable. The Black woman plays a role in the destruction of the Black family the same way the Black man does. So Black women are going to have to learn how to receive criticism the same way Black men do. The only way we're going to get to this problem is to point out the issues and the way that, and this is not saying that, okay, the Black women are so complicit. No. These are stratagems that white supremacy uses as ways to destroy the family. It's the act of warfare in the Black community is Black women raising children alone. And he went out, he did a whole presentation an hour prior to talking about the social media as to how the government took the Black men out of the home through many different avenues. So we got to stay focused and understand warfare and not let our emotions get a hold of us, because this is not Tommy Sotomayor over here. These are Black men teaching. This is a teaching moment, and we got to learn. We got to learn how to ingest the information and not feel attacked. Because I now understand your point, because we attack each other so much, but this ain't the attack. This is what I would teach my daughter, so she don't get caught up in the same thing. This is what I would teach my son, so he don't get caught up in the same thing. But we got to understand the stratagems that they use. Go ahead, brother Omowale.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just think I don't think she heard the earlier part, because I definitely don't put blame on individuals. You know what I mean? Like The entire presentation was a presentation about the strategies that white people use to essentially, control our population. And I basically made the argument that the conflict that we have as a people is one that has been engineered and instigated by them. I didn't put any blame on Black women at all. So I think that you probably just missed the earlier portion of the lecture.
Okay.
But I definitely appreciate the feedback. I appreciate you weighing in. My thing is to try to build bridges, right? Because I'm concerned about the dynamic of the relationship right now between Black men and Black women, and especially on the social media or YouTube space, you see a lot of blaming going back and forth. I'm really trying to get to a point where we can bring healing to the reality, understand how it was created, but also develop solutions so that we can do the work that is necessary for us to survive the 21st century.
Let me just say this real fast, and then I'll pass it back to you, sis. Listen, in the Black community, Black women, Black mothers, and grandmothers are like sacred. You better not say anything about my mother, because a lot of us grew up with our fathers, and our moms and grandmoms are the ones that take care of us when we can't take care of ourselves. And that's sort of become a problem because a lot of our women has become without criticism. I want Black women to understand, do not ever, I'm a Black father of daughters, and I'm a husband of a Black woman. Black women can be criticized. She is never above critique or criticism. And we got to get out of that mindset, because that's one of the things that's destroying us too. Because when you have a lot of sisters say they want strong Black men, but when Black men begin to criticize Black women get tight because they're not used to being criticized, because Black women has been put in charge of the community. And that's an aspect of warfare. So we got to get to a point when, listen, there's a difference between me or brothers that's bringing information that's trying to unite the families. So we can criticize Black men all day. Listen, anybody that know George Macon, all our preachers male accountability. But when we get on the women cannot get tight to the point where they get upset and they lose focus and lose the whole mission. If y'all with us, y'all got to stay on board, and you got to understand, because there's brothers out here taking the time to pay attention to what's going on. So in a 2.5 hour lecture, when we do one thing about a woman, you can't take that part out and then just drop the whole other part of the lecture, because all of it goes together. And I rest on that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. I heard what it led up to, and I heard it lead back up to, the Black woman acting out online and things like that. But I'm gonna say this: it's just not with the Black women. Brothers is, how can I put it? Distracted from the real problem, which is the system that we live under. Okay, even when it comes to President Obama, they would say in a heartbeat, he didn't do anything for us. Well, you wasn't prepared. You wasn't in place for him to do anything. We had no kind of companies, no corporations, no kind of community organizations set up where he can issue money into, because he can't just put it in your hand. He can't put it in individuals' hand. It has to go, when the government issue money, it goes to corporations and consultant firms to better the community and all of that kind of stuff. We had none of that going on. So where was he to issue money to Black people? He can't just directly issue it to them. So you wasn't in position to have him do anything for you. You can't blame him. He did try with the stimulus package. Okay, but all the white people is already lined up in line with all their corporations and all of that, and it goes to them, and the little that's left come to us. You can't blame him for that. Okay, you got to check yourself on that. I'm talking about Black men, because Black men are the leaders. Okay, and then they have a lady in the chat room, Lioness or Lion Ma, something like that, and she had in her chat, one of her posts, when Black men disrespect Black women, it should be shut down. Black men have to shut other Black men down when they begin to disrespect Black women. Same with Black women. When they're in our midst, a sister is in our midst, and she begin to disrespect brothers, that has to be shut down too. And that's why I say a solution to it is for the form of sisterhood and form of brotherhood. because brothers got to deal with brothers and sisters have to deal with sisters. But us just dealing with each other, it's never going to really come to nothing because we can't get in front of men. That's my belief, at least. That's how come I say a brotherhood, form a brotherhood and form a sisterhood. We can deal with each other as well as be with one another. You see what I'm saying?
I don't think we disagree.
Yeah, right. We agree on everything.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disagreement from what you're saying. So
yeah, I just heard that part about the when it led back into the black woman acting out on social media and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, how did it lead to that?
But what I'm saying is you got to stay focused. You got to understand that when you say men are in front, if you see men teaching and men leading, then you got to sit back and let the men teach, and then come and ask us the questions, because there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing. At some point, you got to be able to trust us and what we're doing. There's a reason why we landed out that way, and there's a reason why we're doing these presentations. A lot of times the women want the men to lead, and this is not just for you. This is for a lot of women, because a lot of our women are not used to men being in front, authoritative figures. I get it. A lot of us are raised by our women, so it's hard for our women to trust us. But when you have men coming out, our women are going to have a part of this warfare is getting our women back to see us outside of the stereotypical lens that they've been conditioned to see us as men. So when we're teaching, it has to get to a point where say, you know what, brothers, I don't understand that, but I know that I know who these brothers is teaching, and these brothers are on point, so I'm gonna listen. Our sisters ain't get there yet. They haven't gotten there yet, and that's not a critique. It is a critique. It is a critique, because we got to get to a point in warfare that our sisters are the ones raising these children in the house, do the breakdown of the family. Our boys are in jail. They running around dropping seeds without a care, even having a family. And our children, women are bearing these children. So when it gets to a point where we're going to have to hold each other accountable, you're right. There's going to have to be a sisterhood. Sisters are going to have to start holding sisters accountable. Brothers are going to have to start holding brothers accountable. And that's just the way it's going to be. A lot of the ratchet behavior, a lot of the mistrust. I don't think that brothers are in a place where we can actually really talk to sisters at this point, because sisters don't understand us yet, nor do they trust us. So it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. But yeah, we got to lay it out. And when I do presentations, I'm gonna come at the women, and I'm gonna need some of the women that's watching to understand, well, that's George teaching. It's George teaching, because a lot of these women are ratchet as hell and doing ratchet shit. But the problem that I'm telling you, sisters do not call sisters out the way that they should. And I've been saying this a lot on my channel. A sister can see sisters going crazy, and a brother like me can say something, and another sister still back her because I'm a man saying something to a woman. Sisters got to call sisters out the same way we call out our brothers. We got to do it. And it's something that I speak about all the time, and it's not done to the manner that it should be. And once we get to that point, the ones that are woke and conscious, like the people in the chat and us, we can begin to move forward. I want to let my brother D Red come in, and then my brother DZI Lee, because he's been waiting for a while. Hey, we spoke about a couple things. Come in, man. I know you was listening, man. What's your opinion on what we speaking about?
Who you talking to?
Yeah, you, bro.
I mean, as far as the woman thing, black woman thing, I don't really. To me, I just feel like that stuff becomes a distraction. It don't be productive, because, as you brothers have said ad nauseum, that it's okay if we get up on here and go at a brother's neck, go at each other, and not in a debate format or information wise. I'm not even talking about on some real street stuff. I'm just talking about it's okay for us to critique each other, and black women cheer that on, and that's great. But the minute we critique them, it becomes an issue. So I mean, I don't have to beat a dead horse on that. I mean that becomes obvious. But I think that becomes our fault still, because I coach little league football, right? And my quarterback was getting, acting stupid, talking about why the line ain't blocking, and I had to tell him, "You the leader, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, the way your people follow reflects leadership. You see what I'm saying? So even when if the man is the head or the leader, and the people your subordinates are acting up, does that reflect on the people that's acting up, or does that reflect on the leadership or lack thereof? It reflects on the leadership and lack thereof because we that fall victim to the culture that the brother just gave the presentation about. What do I mean? We end up perpetuating the stereotypical George. We was on the panel before, and the brother was talking about marriage was we shouldn't get married, right? But you asked the brother a question, but we still gonna be having sex though, right?
Right,
You
right.
see what I'm saying? Now these are supposed to be conscious woke brothers, right? But they don't believe in marriage, but they still want to be having sex. So again, we got to start understanding a lot of the issues the sisters are having is because a lot of brothers lack the ability to actually be leading, therefore lack the ability to even be with a woman with her sexually in the first place. You see what I'm saying? And I think we as men have got to start. So I don't know how to go about it just yet, but I mean, me and a couple of my coaches, we've been talking about it. We got to come up with something where it's like for the sisters, it's like we got man code, so we can't do stuff against man code, but we got to figure out some loophole in the code to figure this to where the sisters know that ain't the dude you need to be dealing with.
Right, right.
Because a lot of the times women don't necessarily know, and they fall victim to these dudes, and it creates the bitter woman that don't want to be criticized. You kind of say it becomes it's cyclical. It becomes a cycle. So we got to figure out some kind of way to break this cycle, and that's why brothers like George, brother, I know brother Q, he married. You see what I'm saying? So brothers that are stable in that realm need to create some kind of outreach, because I think sisters can't really receive information from sisters. They don't really. I'm not gonna say that they don't trust each other, but I think that how can as my daddy said, the insane can't lead a sane person to nowhere but the insane asylum. You see what I'm saying? So not to say sisters are insane, but you gotta get the point. The point I'm making is brothers have got to teach sisters what to look for in a man, because no woman can teach another woman that. That's stuff that you learn. My sisters learned it from me and my brother. You see what I'm saying? My cousins learned it from me and my brother. They learned what to look for in a man. It has to be taught. You see what I'm saying? So I think brothers like George and Q and others that are in stable marriages, we need to be teaching these sisters how to pick a man, because that alleviates all and most of the problems. I ain't gonna say all, but it alleviates most of the problems, because now they're not stuck in that cycle, and they're actually getting with guys who actually want to marry them, actually want to build a family, and then it stops the whole thing.
Right. I'm glad you said that. Before we segue into Ali, I'll just say this. That's why I'm glad the brother did the presentation, because what's going to happen is our sisters are going to have to be taught warfare. The problem that you have is when we was integrated, the black man was destroyed, and he showed the many different levels on how they destroyed the black man, and they integrated the black woman into the society. And because of that, a lot of our sisters don't understand warfare. Our sisters are going to have to be taught warfare, what warfare is, and the way that she's being attacked, and her sons that she's raising being attacked, and the men that she's laying down and having the children. So once we begin to understand the tactics that are used in the warfare, our sisters will be better equipped in this culture that we've been raised in to cultivate and raise the children. But right now, because through warfare, our sisters don't know. And this is why when we do critique the women go crazy, because she's not used to being critiqued. The woman is used to being in charge. In the black community, the black woman is the most accessible woman in America. Anybody can get to a black woman. Anybody can fuck a black woman. Anybody can get to a black woman. Why? Because she's not protected by her man. The man don't stand at the doorstep of the community. Big Mama did. Big Mama did at the black community. When you deal with any other ethnic group in America, not the black men, those men operate as the leaders of the community. Our communities were destroyed for reasons, many reasons that was broken down in this presentation. And because of that, Big Mama and Auntie and Mommy stands at the doorstep. So our sisters are not used to being critiqued by men because they're used to being in power, and that's a problem. And we probably do another presentation on that. So I'm not mad at the sister when she actually asked the question because I understand. I understand the warfare. I want to bring my brother Ali in to speak on this. Come on in, bro.
How you doing, George? I'll say this, uh, George. I just like to say that our women out here are hurting, bro. They are hurting, and so I actually feel sisters like Cynthia G
Right.
and other sisters who lose patience with us because they are waiting for us black men to make some type of move, some type of power move to whereas we can give them faith that we are going to get us out of this mess that we are currently in. See, I've taken up leadership training in the U.S. Army. I've taken up leadership training in the civilian world. One thing I have learned as a leader is when your charges fuck up, when people under you fuck up, that falls back on you. So if black men are indeed leaders, if our women are out here fucking up or out of pocket, that falls back on us. I am very hard on men because I'm a man. I have been a man my whole life, and I think men should be held to a higher standard if we are indeed the leaders of the community. We all realize what was done to us through slavery, through Jim Crow, through the black codes. Black men were effectively removed from the black family, and women had no choice but to step up and take leadership of our families, of our communities, and it's kind of hard for us to wrestle that leadership back from them now. We're going to have to show them, we're going to have to give them some type of reasoning or faith that we are ready to resume that role of being leader of our communities, our families, everything. I see women out here, George. I am down here in Florida. I see women out here in this hot ass sun, dragging 3, 4, 5 kids behind them to the damn bus stop. Sometimes I damn talk to them, offer them a ride, whatever. I always ask them, "Where your man at?" I don't know where he at. He's nowhere. We got sorry ass niggas down here. They they aren't working. They're not even hustling. I'm like, yeah, women should know better, but what has been done to us, it has messed their head up also. To whereas they are choosing wrong men. So us men who have gotten our heads back on track and we are conscious, we are going to have to tighten other men up, and something radical is going to happen within this generation or the next generation where we're going to do something about these millions of women out here who are trying to raise families on their own. That is very, very stressful, you know. And I feel sisters like Cynthia G's pain. They are waiting on us to make some type of move, any type of move. We have to get together and we have to provide something tangible for them. You know, talk is good, but this talk is going to have to eventually lead to a plan to where sisters sit back and they cop their little eye up and they're like, oh, all right, brothers got us. Brothers about to do something. So brothers have to be patient with the sisters. You know, like I like to use. Imagine a man and his wife and his children home eating dinner. Someone run up in the house, slap the shit out the man, beat the damn woman up, rape the damn kids. How in the hell is your woman going to damn look at you? That is what has happened to the American black woman. They have witnessed their man get damn beat up, knocked out, them raped, kids raped, and now they are looking at us side-eyed. You know, so we're going to have to do something as men to earn their respect back. So hopefully discussions such as this will lead to something tangible, to whereas we can prove to our women that we are doing something to get them, us, and our kids out of the situation that we are currently in.
Let me say this to the women in the chat room, especially you, my sister Ebony Knowledge. Listen, the people that watch me know that I speak about male accountability and our accountability to black women. Y'all got to get out your emotions right now. This is a presentation and this is a conversation that's needed to be had. Nobody's woman bashing, but we're going to talk about what needs to be talked about. Y'all got to calm down with all that. Like, you are not above saying the things that we say. You heard what the brother just said on what we need. All of us as black men know that we're the leaders of this community, and as men, no matter how much we want to say, we failed, we lost, and our women and children suffered from it. Everybody knows that I teach this. I talk about this all the time. But what I'm not going to stand for today, we got to get out of this. We got to get out of this stuff. Listen, we're not going to always just go and just say the men, and never say nothing about the women. Because, see, now you love me when I'm speaking black male accountability. But the minute we speak on the women, now everybody get tight and everybody get attitude. Get out of that. I don't respect that. Stop it. We got, if we want to get solutions, nobody's generalizing women, none of that stuff. Black boys and black men are generalized all the time. What we're talking about is, how do we fix the families and the strategies that they use to break down our families? This is what we're talking about. Get out of your feelings, please. I'm not Tommy Sotomayor talking right now. This is George Macon. Like, we got to stop that. I don't respect that. Because if you can support me when I'm going hard and I'm loud and I'm being boisterous on the channel, then you got to support me now when we breaking things down and showing how they're attacking us in the different ways. Because the black man is attacked differently from the black woman. We got to stop it. I don't want to hear none of that stuff. What I want to hear from the sisters is, okay, brothers, how can we assist you, brothers? Because you brothers are bringing out solutions. That's what I want to hear from the sisters. How can y'all assist us, and how can we assist you? More solution based. I'm not with the nonsense. For the brothers in the chat room, I don't want to hear brothers blaming black women. I don't want to hear that sissified punk crap, and I don't want to hear the whining from the women. How can you assist us? And brothers, how can we come together, unify as black men, to listen to our women's cry and maybe remedy her problems? So I'll mute my mic, and who want to go? Who want to come? Who want to speak?
Can I jump in right quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What's good, family? Yo, just to bring it back to the point. This isn't about the men or the women. This is about these white people and their system that they created to oppress black people. On the screen, to continue forward with the brother's presentation, this right here, read it, preliminary report of the Committee of the Eugenics, that section of the American Breeders Association to study, blah, 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 practical means for cutting off the defective germplasm. This was reprinted for Georgia State. They're studying this in Georgia State. This was originally put together in 1912. Fast forward down the page. Let me go to page 5 just so you can see what they were promoting. So what we're talking about is black women, is black men. No, this is their system that they said, among other remedies, the following have been proposed as means for promoting or effecting the desired ends. Life segregation, that's how educational zoning, economic zoning, sterilization. We know what they did in our community. Restrictive marriage laws and customs. They use hip hop and other means to destroy our view of marriage. Eugenic education of the public and protective marriage mates. They use Bill Cosby shows and other shows to teach us what type of woman we want to have, what type of man we're supposed to have. Systems of mating, promoting, and to removal of defective traits. They're telling our kids, oh, we want light-skinned babies. Oh, I don't want this one with big lips. I don't want that type of hair. General environmental betterment. They control our environment. Polygamy. They're controlling how we go all over the place. Euthanasia, making us want to take on the ability to be killed. We practice, in New York City, there's more abortions committed than births in the black community. Neo-malthusian, I don't know how to pronounce that word right. Laissez-fairness, where we sit back and just watch the government do it. This was written in 1912. What are we talking about? Black women and black men. That's not the point of the video. That's not even the point of the presentation. It has nothing to do with it. We're moving backwards. They gave us the way to fight this. Life segregation. There in New York City is one of the most segregated cities in America. And it's all, everybody's blended together and everybody thinks it's together. No, blacks over here, Chinese over there, Spanish over there, whites over there. That's how it's broken down. So we got to look at this structure and catch the hell up. That's what the brother's whole presentation was about. It has nothing to do with gender. The conversation about gender has nothing to do with the plan. It's very simple. Organize where we are. Organize the people that's there. This is look at the date, y'all. 1912. We're talking about what Booker T. Washington was doing, Marcus Garvey was doing. This is what colleges were doing. White people had their institutions working together to come up with a plan to create this conversation 100 years ago. I'm sorry, y'all. We have to stay focused. Everything else is just a waste of conversation. It's a pure waste of conversation. It's not a woman's fault. It's not a man's fault. We're not defeated. We're having this almost 10 of us on this conversation. I can't hear the word, I love you, George, but I can't hear black men are destroyed. I can't hear the black family destroyed. I come from a black family. I have a black family. We're not destroyed. I built my own institution. No crackers in here. We do all this stuff for the community. No cracker help. We can do this. We got to stay focused on what we have to do, and that's rebuilding our communities, rebuilding our families, building up the structures like the brother said. And as we build as men, we ain't got to talk about all the other stuff. Just build. Just focus on your job, B. Work. My bad, got a little excited, but
Hey, sister, you want to say something before we bring what's the name back in? You want to say something?
Yes, I totally agree with Q Butter all the way. That was my point. It always leads back to black women-ness or checking black women, and that was my point of saying it should never get to that point.
Right.
We should never lose focus on what the issue is. Like he said, the issue is to keep being visionary, stay focused on the issue. It's not the black man, it's not the black woman. We know what the issue is, which is the system that we live in under. It's been structured by our oppressors that still exist today, and they continue to teach this to their children. We need to do better at educating our children. We need to pull our children. I homeschool myself. We need to get our children from up under our oppressors. That's the worst thing you can do, is allow your oppressors to educate your children. I asked my son, I said, look, what do you think about, do you think white people would let their children go to a all Asian school where the whole staff is, the teachers, principal is Asians? He says, nah, that don't make sense. I said, well, you think the Asians allow their children to be going to black schools where the staff is all black? He said, well, no, that don't make sense. I said, you get it now, right? You see how we allow our black children to go to school with a whole staff of white people, and he gets it. You see what I'm saying? That's crazy right there. We have to pull our children from up under that. There's ways we can do that.
Let me ask you, sister, as a black woman, seeing the conditions that your sons and husbands and fathers are under, what are some of the ways that you think black women can assist black men?
I always been in the chat room saying, forming a sisterhood. It is so, oh my goodness, it is so terrible out here today where black women in particular that I'm seeing, we have no kind of community among each other. Like, we have no connection. We need each other. They have so many black women out here with kids that's raising their kids alone, that don't have no kind of family, no kind of family structure to fall back on for assistance or nothing. They just by themselves. So I always reach out to other sisters when I see them and try to pull them in and form some type of relationship with them. But it's even hard among sisters now. We're so divided. It's hard for them to even let other sisters come in and be like, you know, come on, let's be family. Let's pull together. Let's push together. Let's network. We're going to be all right. It's even it's so terrible, the division. It's even among sisters, but I push past it because I'm you know, God has allowed me to see, you know, the division and would have taken place. So for me, I think that black women I like to focus on Black women because Black women is, we need to, help each other. We can't afford to get in front of Black men and be trying to direct them and tell them anything. To me, I feel like let Black men do them and let them figure it out. And we're gonna come on over here together and figure this out together. So for me, forming sisterhoods and let Black men do what they're gonna do. But for us to survive, we need to form a sisterhood.
Right. Yeah.
Period.
I wanted to ask you that because I know they have sisterhoods here in America, but we know that in this women's liberation, this feminist society, the independent woman, what type of sisterhood? What would be the mindset of these sisterhood? Is these
Brother George.
Yeah, go ahead, Omowale. Go ahead, bro.
I just want to build on what the sister just said, and if you don't mind, I just want to share my screen quickly. So the sister just gave some real good game that I hope the sisters in the chat room take away about the importance of building and developing a sisterhood as Black women. So for me, one of the things that I would like to see is I would like to see more Black women studying and embracing Black nationalism, right? We're looking to women like Assata Shakur, like Amy Jocks Garvey. But this is a piece that I started last year, but I never really finished it. But I started it off with a quote from Amy Jocks Garvey, right? The piece was going to be called "Black Women Don't Need Allies, They Need Black Men to Be Black Men," right? And this is a quote, this is a little excerpt from Amy Jocks Garvey that I just want to read to the chat room that really highlights the importance of what the sister just said about sisterhood. She says, "Be not discouraged, Black women of the world, but push forward, regardless of the lack of appreciation shown you. A race must be saved, a country must be redeemed, and unless you strengthen the leadership of the vacillating Negro men, we will remain marking time until a yellow race gains leadership of the world and we be forced to subserviency under them or extermination. We are not tired of hearing Negro men say, 'There is a better day coming.'" No, she says, we are tired of hearing Negro men say, "There is a better day coming," while they do nothing to usher in the day. We are becoming so impatient that we are getting in front of the ranks and serve notice on the world that we will brush aside the halting, cowardly Negro men, and with prayer on our lips and arms prepared for any fray, we will press on until the victory is over. Mr. Black Man, watch your step. Ethiopia's queen will reign again, and her Amazons protect her shores and people. Strengthen your shaky knees and move forward. We will displace you and lead on to victory and to glory. So I just wanted to share that because it's very important for the sisters to understand, the peculiar situation that we are in as a race of people, but also for the sisters to develop a sisterhood. That was Marcus Garvey's wife. And you see how the way that she's speaking, and you see how the way she's holding Black men, but also Black women accountable. We each have to be accountable to the race. And if Black men ain't doing it, then Black women got to step up. And if Black women ain't doing it, then Black men got to step up. But ultimately, we can't do it apart from one another. We have to develop what George is trying to do here. He's trying to develop strong brotherhood. We can build and link and work to serve our people, right? With the Malcolm X, I'll share the screen one more time because I have Malcolm's quote in there as well. I need to go back and write this piece. But can y'all see my screen, Brother George?
Yeah. I just hit tapped on your thing so they can see.
Okay, cool. So Malcolm says the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. Yep. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman, right? So until we as Black men get some respect for the Black woman, we ain't never gonna have no respect for ourselves. So I think that it's incumbent upon us as men to build, to organize, to create institutions that are capable of serving our people, protecting our women, and providing for our children. So I appreciate the sisters' build. I just wanted to weigh in.
Right. I'll say this real quick. I'm gonna bring Moses in. Right. And the reason why I try to bring the brothers in the form of brotherhood, because this whole brotherhood is to form trust and love amongst brothers where we can properly serve our women. So any type of brotherhood is for the benefit of the women and children. So any sisterhood that's formed is for the trust, the love, and benefit to the men. If we form a brotherhood and it's not benefiting, and it's not for the benefit of our women and children, then it's no good. Because if it's just for us, then what was the point of it? Because we are protectors and providers, and our women is our helpmates, and they serve as well. So the sisterhood cannot be caught up in the feminism or the Women's lib. I got to get the bag. We got to get our minds out of this westernized thinking culture and think together. Think, build. We're as one. We're evenly yoked. And this culture doesn't. This culture is not promoting that. So we gotta renew our minds, man. We gotta, as men and as women. Let me bring my brother Moses in real quick. So let him speak.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No. Yeah, bro.
All right. Yep. So I get it. There's been an ongoing conversation, even here, that wants to look at eugenics today. So the 108 years after the original publication and its implementation through feminism, through the politics, through the ups and downs of Jim Crow, through the civil rights acts that were passed in the movement beforehand, through the drugs, through the, the conditions of the Black community, all the economic up and downs, Black Panthers, everything that happened, and then look at eugenics today and hear some of the conversations that we've been privy to and say, well, the Black woman is feeling slighted and vulnerable, and the Black man is feeling a pull from, when it comes to self accountability and self mastery, he's feeling pulled in the direction of integration, and neither of these solutions are actually matching. So to that, I would say we need the Brother George, we need Omowale's, we need these shows. This was our education. This was like one of the brothers says, I think it's Marcus Love, a moderator on O'Shea's panel. We need our bullets. We need our intellectual bullets. And what you gave us tonight was things that we can actually load in our arsenal when we're going to and fro throughout the world. Some of the brothers who may not hear this show may hear another show. And on that show, will they have someone who has been educated in eugenics and knows the data and able to give them a thorough, comprehensive spanking on why eugenics is a distraction? On why they might just only look at it as swirling. They have a tagline called dick policing. And they can go with those and not feel the obligation and feel almost empowered by their ability to choose any other woman that is not the Black woman. So for us to be in a position to kind of, there's some that are still like the swing voters. They're still on that line where they're deciding whether or not their mother can be, their grandmother was strong. And that strength, is that something that they can reproduce? That DNA, that survival, that strength, that power, that Black woman, is that something that they can reproduce? Or do they need to go to another culture and reproduce the seed and the DNA and the genetic markers of another culture? And while we're still here as brothers, we need these type of builds to where we're empowering each other, not just when we're making our decisions and as we're going forward, but when we're also helping others. So right now, the ladies may want it to be about them. They wanted to blow it out of proportion, but that is still, once again, my analogy, Brother George. We're on a battlefield, and we do not have the luxury to turn around and try to check our women with what they're doing when the enemy is still right in front of us. We really don't have the luxury to keep looking to our left and our right to make sure that our brothers are doing good. In many cases, we still need to be fighting the battles that are in front of us. And right now, those battles in front of us, they're not the physical battle. We are in an intellectual warfare, a media warfare, using Black YouTube as a platform to connect and engage with like-minded individuals who are they're still determining whether or not integration is their choice, whether nationalism is their choice, or whether Pan-Africanism is their choice. And we need more brothers to be conscious to that, to know what it is they're signing up for, and to be willing to engage the real enemy in front of us. So sorry, sisters, it can't always be about you. We can't bash you, but at many times we can't even really respond to the things that you're saying, because tonight is really about edification. It is about giving us the information about eugenics, giving us the information about feminism, giving us the information. These are the counter arguments that we need to be strong. These are our weights, Brother George. These are the 245-pound dumbbells when we need to lift off. You know, the last point, he brought up the slide. Point number 10 said laissez-faire. And you know how we feel about the black conservatives or the so-called black conservatives. So that laissez-faire and the free market and the government, we need our weights, Omowale. And you giving us some weights that we can help push some of this pressure off of our chest. So the brothers need you, so we thank you for it.
All right, what we're gonna do, we're gonna begin to close out. I'm gonna bring let DZ Ali speak and D Red, and then everybody can start to close out. Yeah, go ahead, Ali.
Once again, George, I just like to thank you for this build. It is much needed. I always look forward to when I get a notification telling me that Mr. George Macon is live. I always run and click on it. You know what I'm saying? Because I know you're always gonna bring some heat, and you're gonna bring some much needed information, and it's gonna be done in a respectable manner. You know, like you said, this isn't Tommy Sotomayor level bashing. What we are doing is we are building and teaching over here. I also like that you like to focus on solutions. That's something that I am big on. You know, we have plenty of channels and platforms where brothers and sisters are very good at bringing our shortcomings and our problems, but we need more platforms where we're going to actually discuss solutions. You know, so I thank you for that. I look forward to seeing that notification pop up once more saying George Macon's live. And with that, I'll just like to say peace and power to you and the chat.
Thanks, brother. Where you at, D Red?
Shoot, what it do, man? Hey, all I ain't really got a whole lot to say, man. Dude did his thing on a PowerPoint. Uh, I mean, if you gonna whatever you gonna do for black people, it gotta start in your house first. You know what I mean? If you can't lead your household, you can't lead your people. So you start in your house first, then go to your community, then go to your city, then go to your state, and just keep building. You know what I'm talking about? And try to link up with as many folks as you can. They got the same vision you got. They want the same things you want, and let it go from there, man. Let it grow on its own. You know, the Panther started, you know what I'm saying, being a street light. You know what I'm saying? 3-4 people, and grew to a worldwide phenomenon. So it could be done. We already got the templates. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I mean, you can look at the Diggers for Defense. You see what I'm saying? Brother Marcus, who started that. You can look at the Revolutionary Action Movement. You can look up the Lowndes County Political Organization. I mean, you can look up all these different groups. You know what I mean? You can look up SNCC. You can look up all these different groups, and you'll find that it wasn't a whole bunch of people. It was just a small group of people, and it grew. You know what I mean? So you don't have to. You don't have to. YouTube should not be the beginning of what you're trying to do as far as community work. Because I don't know what Brooklyn need. Q know that. You see what I'm saying? Q might not know what Houston need. I know that. I don't know what Philly need. George know that. And so forth and so on. So you got to start taking care of the needs of the people in your immediate circle, in your immediate community. Start there, start doing something. I don't care if it's coaching kickball. You see what I'm saying? Because once you get out there and start coaching kickball, you'll meet another brother or sister that's doing this, that, and the third, and that could point you in the direction of where you want to go, where you trying to go, or whatever, and it'll grow. You know what I mean? But you just got to get out there and be active and do something. You see what I'm saying? It don't have to start out to be this grandiose idea. Just do something. You see what I'm saying? Boots on the ground, do something, and that's it.
Where you at, Q? Hey Q, make sure you mention the school too. Tell the people that they want to donate and what it is you're doing. I'm gonna have to come up there. We're gonna have to do another interview. Matter of fact, I'm gonna repost tomorrow. I'm gonna repost those the interview I did with you because I got more subscribers so people can actually see the school.
Oh, you already know. Good looks, King. Yeah, we got the Institute in Brooklyn. And just to, I'm trying to run through it quick. Like the brother said, there's I'm gonna take my I'm gonna screen share whatever I can. I think Omowale, you might like this. Yo, we're pretty much we're grouped up into like maybe 15 cities. The conscious community is located in like 15 cities across America, and so I've been working on this framework to counter, eugenics planning and different things like that. And it's a nationwide framework. You see here I listed out the different cities, and I have 10 on here, but it's pretty much 15. That is like it's about 15, even up to say 20. We could develop learning centers. It's not expensive to develop learning centers. We need to organize our daycare centers so we can get to the parents early on and start helping them from there. Our Black school networks, we're already trying to organize all the Black schools across the country and coordinate that in different cities. Such in New York, we have a lot of legislation against alcoholic and tobacco usage, but in other cities, our communities are being tormented by that. And so we can easily use these platforms to build legislation that we can introduce to fight against, in Compton, they're allowed to sell Hennessy next to gummy bears. They're allowed to advertise all these posters of alcoholic beverages right across the street from schools, right next to daycare centers. And these are things that we can fight against right now with the people we have on this platform and other platforms like this to do that, and that's why I have laid out legislation, and this is something I'm going to promote. I'm promoting in LA, Detroit, and Nashville. Going forward, strategic Black banks. When I started this, it was 19 Black banks. There's only about 17 Black banks now. We need to systematically support them in any way possible and really get our Black businesses to increase their financial capabilities so as they can have more savings inside of these banks that the banks can in a sense use to develop our communities. Of course, then there's the strategic science initiative. We've been attacked in the sciences. A lot of us have a disdain for the information coming from the sciences. So we need to use these platforms to organize the people in the sciences so that way we can start having a plethora of people that can understand the information, defend the information, and come up with new ways of delivering the information to us and to come up with ways to develop our community. Health initiatives. There's tons of free things that we can be doing in our community right now with these platforms, and they're free. Health screening, STD awareness, immunization. There's also a new certificate that the government released. It's mental health. I could have posted the link, but it's a mental health coach, and it's a free certificate, and they're doing it in all the major cities. I suggest everybody on the platform, if you email me, I can give you the link to that, and you can find the link in your city and get the certificate. It's a very powerful mental health certificate. And we brothers need that. All of us in here are dealing with our community's mental health. Strategic spiritual, I'm 8, but I still put that up there. Black political initiative and education. A lot of us are talking, like the brother was saying, platforms and information to build with. We need to organize these things. I can go on further, but there's a little framework I came up with because I see that we have the ability to do these things and we have the network and the resources to do it. But I think we just have to push it so that way we can really, really attack it. The brother got the presentation. We can use Google Documents. Anybody that's not familiar with Google Documents, hit me up. I'm nice with it. I go into the services we got. I'm trying to say a lot in a little bit of time. The sister on the platform, you homeschool, email me at QButter, QUEBUTTER. I can give you access to our IXL. We also have a homeschooling program. We will be launching the digital version on our new website coming up in like a week or two. So if you email me, I could definitely give you access to all of the homeschooling programs that we have and everything that we have in that thing there. Also, we got free credit repair. You go on the website, tons of things on there. I got information so that you can just learn how to do credit repair for yourself, teach yourself, and be able to be financially empowered to make certain decisions. Be able to carry out the decisions you want to make for your financial future. I'm trying to throw a lot in there. We got a lot of big enemy to fight against, so we got to strategize and organize and fight.
All right, sister. I forgot her name. Sister, Sister Chantel. Close out, sis.
Okay, well, my closeout statement is just that, like I said, my solution to the Black community's plight is to build a sisterhood network with a task force community inside of that network, which tackles things that we need to do and work on and structuring things for our kids and stuff like that, teaching our kids how to love and respect one another. And in particular, this sisterhood network, to me, it has to be African American women in particular, because like we want reparations and all of that kind of stuff. when we have other black foreigners and all of that come in, it brings a lot more confusion. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's African American women in particular that I focus on. I never really go, even though I got love for the other sisters and stuff, they got struggles too. But I focus strictly on African American women in particular, in our communities, because which struggles the most for some reason. But African American women in particular, and when we believe in a change, the change is coming. When we believe in a change, and if we believe in it, we have to get ready and be in place. Like when people like Obama get in position, they can reach out and say, "Well, I want to send, this to that corporation or whatever like that." We need to be in place and be ready to receive what's going to come to us. So, and that sisterhood, the network doesn't need to focus on men at all. I'm not saying let's be against men. No way. What I'm saying is just that, I don't believe in us just sitting around focusing on men, period. I think we should just let men be men and do what they're gonna do. If they fall off, they fall off. If they if they build, they build. But like the brother said in the poetry he read, look, when our men ain't in line, we gotta pick up and pull and keep pushing. Okay, but we cannot do that on our own. We have to do it as a unit. We have to come together as one. It's simply not gonna happen as individuals. It's not. So that's my solution to it, a sisterhood network.
Omowale, bring us home, brother.
Brother George, I'm just going to finish with, I'm a Garveyite, so I always like to take it back to Garvey. And Garvey said that the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. Brother Q just showed us a nice document where he's showing the importance of organizing nationally to put the work in. So we got a lot of people on the line that are talking about solutions and things we need to do for Black people. But if you ain't including yourself in the effort to organize on behalf of Black people, then we just here talking. Another thing that I want us to keep in mind is that as African people or Black people in America, we are just a subset of a global Black population. You know what I mean? And if we win in the battle here in America, but they losing everywhere else, then we still losing here in America. So we have to keep that in mind, that our ends and our goals are attached to the goals of Black people globally, right? So I always say it's either nationalism or death, it's Pan-Africanism or perish, it's unify or die. This coming Sunday, the organization that I organized with here in Philly, Afrocentricity International, which is an organization that was founded and modeled after Marcus Garvey's UNIA. We meet every first and third Sunday at 2:30 p.m. at 5535 Germantown Avenue in the Philadelphia area. If you're in Philly, definitely pull up. Brother George Macon has pulled up in the past, and I hope that in the future, Brother George, man, you can link up and head up to Brooklyn to build with the Brother Q. And then just to share my screen really quickly here, on the 27th of October, I'll be speaking on a panel here in Philly that's hosted by Time for an Awakening Media. The panel is it's Time for a Change Community Forum, where they're just dealing with 50 years of Black representation in politics and where do we go from here? You know what I mean? So I'm going to be speaking on the panel, definitely coming from a Black nationalist or Pan-African perspective. But if you're really definitely pull up, that's really all I got.
All right. I want to thank you, brother, for a powerful and great presentation. I know we got more coming. We got some more cooking. I want to thank all the people that came on the panel, man, that dropped information. I want to thank the sister for coming on and dropping, saying what she had to say. We need our sister's input. That's very necessary. I just want to say that I bring a lot of this information on my page because I try to work to solution based. I am a Black man married to a Black woman for a long time. I raised children. I try to consider myself what the Black woman say that she want. On time, responsible, holding a family down black man. And I try to carry myself a certain way on my channel, and certain behaviors is not going to be acceptable on my channel. I want black people to sit down and behave for a short time and be edified and learn. That's why I always say I love my people more than they hate themselves, because I know that our people, we have to be reconditioned, renewed in our minds in order to move forward. So remember, I love my people more than they hate themselves, and I pray to the universal creator most high that these words was enough to inspire you. These words was enough to make you look at yourself in the mirror and make change. These words enough to make you look at your children and know you have to make change. I pray that this information was enough to make you want to pick up a book or go watch a video and begin to study and understand what our ancestors went through. I pray that this information was enough to make you just want to study, and want to emulate and appreciate the struggles that our people went through before us, that we have the opportunity to fix now. I believe that if we don't have these type of conversations, we don't have these type of lectures, we're going to continue to make the same mistakes going forward, because we're not going to have the proper knowledge to teach our children. And our children are going to keep walking into that same hornet's nest that we walked into. And this is why I do this. So anything that we do for the people out there, if we form a brotherhood, if we form a sisterhood, if we ain't building ourselves up, cleaning ourselves up as men to understand what our roles are to the community and the woman, then that brotherhood is no good. Sisters, if you building yourself as sisters and cleaning yourselves up, and it's just for you, and it's not for the betterment of the children and supporting and uplifting your men, then it's no good. It's all going to be part of this Western culture. So remember, we don't have no friends. All we got is just us. So remember, I love all y'all, man. Till the next time. Peace.